Stone and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
I heard in Nick Frazier's breakdown right there in his news update, I heard the nugget about Terrell Williams coaching the Senior Bowl, and I'm like, I know one person in the world who I know is freaking on that, and it's TD, who will join us in an hour. Because there is nobody who loves the Senior Bowl more than TD. Maybe Floyd loved the Senior Bowl as much as TD, but that's about it. TD in 1 hour on the Titans coaching search. So I want to start on this today. I feel like we need to have an uncomfortable conversation, a sit down, as they would call it on The Sopranos. Going to have a sit down and talk about the Titans. Look, I like the Titans. I've told everybody I'm a Titans fan. I don't try to hide it. I get mad when they lose. People say, you don't like Vrabel because Vrabel got mad at you at that press conference. No, I don't like Vrabel because Vrabel can't figure out how to get the offense to score 30 points. That's my problem. And I feel okay with that. But the one thing that I absolutely do, in spite of my love for the Titans, is that I will look in the mirror when it is time to truly assess what is right and what is wrong. So the Titans are looking for a head coach, and there's a lot of competition because a lot of teams are firing their head coaches. And yesterday we even talked about it on Jared versus Joe about where the Titans ranked. And I said, well, if you like Levis, maybe they rank a little bit higher or lower, or who knows. But sometimes it is important to understand what your reputation is. Charles Robinson, Yahoo Sports, senior NFL insider, on Robbie and Joe this morning.
We reached out to a mix of coaches and executives, and we asked them to rank the 7 openings. We said, look, we're going to do it on a point system, 1 to 7, add it up and give us sort of your reasonings why. The Titans finished 6th. And let's see, 1 5th place vote, 4 6th place votes, and someone voted him 7th, like worse than Carolina. And I was stunned when we talked to people just how damaging the Vrabel firing was. It was remarkable to me, just some of the negativity that surrounds looking at that Tennessee job.
That's bad. People inside the league, we got 6 of them. 5 of them, 1 5th place vote, 4 6th place votes, and 1 vote worse than the Panthers. That's bad. And instead of getting mad at Charles Robinson or Yahoo Sports or those 6 executives and coaches, you don't know who they are, we should just face the facts. The Titans as an organization have bad credit. It's a bad reputation. And that matters during coaching season. It does not matter in October what everybody thinks about your owner. Why? Because the games decide themselves. So whatever the narrative is going into this week 7 matchup, it doesn't matter. But it does matter when you're looking for a coach. There is competition for the best coaches. And you're right there in that mix. Thomas Brown, the offensive coordinator of the Panthers. If nobody wants your job, that might be who you end up having to take. Unfortunately, so it does matter. So we can talk about, the Titans getting lucky and hitting it out of the park by getting the right coach who happens to be Sean McVay and nobody else knows. But quite frankly, now's a good time for us to have this conversation, this sit down about what the Titans are and are not as an organization. Because in order for the Titans to improve and improve well, they really do need to address the perceptions that exist about the organization. They don't need to get angry at people for thinking, wow, that is an organization of instability, unstable organization. Don't get mad because the mean radio man said it. Look at it and say, holy crap, we've got to change. We've got to change. I know it's very easy to say, oh, Jared, we didn't have a choice but to fire Mike Mularkey. That's not true. But I know that it's easy to say. He wouldn't fire Terry Robisky. That doesn't change the reality that to everybody else, they saw an organization put out a statement and 8 days later fire the coach. A statement of support. They extended the GM and the coach in January of 2022. Before 2022 was over, they fired the general manager. Not long after the beginning of 2024, they fired the coach. They backed the coach on Thanksgiving. They said he's not going anywhere. And then they fired him. So I'm not saying, for instance, when it comes to me and my reputation, I'm not saying I'm George Washington and that I can't tell a lie. But I do care about my reputation in terms of what people think and how they trust the authenticity of what I say on the radio. That matters to me. That you know it's not an agenda. I'm not in the bag. I'm not protecting buddies. You know that. And that's very important to me. And so the Titans have to look at themselves in the mirror and look at their reputation across the league. And they have to say, is it everybody thinks we're crazy, or are we, in fact, potentially the problem? Because I know the answer, and so do you deep down inside. I'm not saying the Titans can't hire the right coach. You know how I feel about the general manager, but I'm not saying that I can't be wrong about that. But in reality, in a great city, which does matter to a certain extent, not huge, but it does matter. I can guarantee you, Mike Vrabel, and I know he's interviewing for the Charger job, but Mike Vrabel looking at the landscape is like, man, I'm going to miss Nashville. In a division that is constantly changing for better or for worse, the rest of the league looks at this job and they say, no thank you. The best thing you can say is that for 5 of the 6 voters, at least they think more of you than the Panthers, but not the one voter who doesn't. And again, these are the kind of people who will be making these decisions as to, do I want to coach there or do I not want to coach there? Let's use Rand Carthon as an example. Rand Carthon tells Bobby Slowick, Bobby, trust me, this is the organization for you. But does it matter if he can trust Rand Carthon or not? Because as we've seen, they'll pull the plug on anybody. So it's great that Rand Carthon's trying to sell a vision to Bobby Slowick. The problem is, in this case, Bobby Slowick may have offers from Washington or Seattle or Atlanta or wherever, and he's sitting there thinking, I don't know. They just canned Vrabel, and he's apparently a pretty good coach according to everybody out there. So narratives matter. You had Derrick Henry, Taylor Lewan, and Will Compton, 3 former players, including probably the most popular player in the history of the Tennessee franchise portion of this. And they're sitting in there, and they're sitting there talking about, yeah, I wish the front office could have worked it out. Yeah, I don't think you should go back there. Yeah, I want to win a Super Bowl. Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. And so the Titans have 2 choices when it comes to assessing their reputation across the league and why they have the reputation that they have. The first is to bury their head in the sand and completely ignore all of it, which a lot of people do. And it wouldn't surprise me, given what I know of the Titans. And when I talk about the Titans, I'm talking about ownership. It would not surprise me if the Titans buried their head in the sand and just pulled the y'all don't understand card. Like when a contestant gets brought out on the Maury Povich show and they get booed and they say, you don't know me, you don't know me, you don't know me. You don't know what's going on with Mike Vrabel behind the scenes. If you knew John Robinson did this, then you'd understand. But nobody owes you the benefit of looking into why you made the decisions you made. And when you keep having to explain every single decision, every single time, chances are they're probably not good decisions. When the Titans fired Rustin Webster and Ken Wisenhunt, they didn't have to explain those decisions into deep detail because everybody kind of got it. You fire John Robinson when you're first in the division after you've won back-to-back divisions, after you've been to the playoffs 3 years in a row? It's a little head-scratching. Was it A.J. Brown? No, it wasn't A.J. Brown. What was it? We're not going to talk about it. Okay. The second option they have is to address it. The second option is to look in the mirror and say, you know what? In order to be taken seriously, we have got to change how we operate. We have got to change the sentiment that surrounds our organization. It's not a bad thing that the Steelers have a perfect, pristine reputation for holding on to their coaches. It's not a bad thing that in Green Bay, Matt LaFleur or Brian Gutekunst can go toe-to-toe with the superstar quarterback and know that ultimately the organization is going to back them. I'm not saying the Titans should undo it and rehire Vrabel because, in my opinion, it was time. Mike Vrabel wasn't going to make the necessary changes. But this constant yin and yang and the bullcrap that comes out of the Titans, the narratives, they can't be honest with anybody. They can't sit down and put the decision maker in front of people to say, hey, explain to us why you made the decision. And then every time we ask why you made the decision, it's just kind of generic coach speak. There's nothing like, quite frankly, we weren't happy with the way we were drafting. We busted in 2020, we busted in 2021, and we felt like where we were headed, we need a new general manager. Might not be fair to John, but guess what? The NFL ain't fair. But they can't do that. And that's why their reputation is where it is. Right now, there is the society of everybody. And then there's their little lone tiny fishbowl. And inside their little lone tiny fishbowl, they can kind of, string together 50% support or 45% support. But outside of the fishbowl, they've got zero support. Again, one guy voted the Panthers ahead of them. That guy saying, I'd rather work for that a-hole who throws drinks out of his booth than work for the crazy Titans. Look in the mirror. You may be able to get the candidate you want, but you're probably not going to be able to get the best candidates. And again, these reputations, they don't go just to head coach. They go to assistant coach. They trickle on down into the front office. And it is something that shakes if the people that work for you can't trust you and believe in you. So I'm glad Charles Robinson got on there today and was like, yeah, we talked to these people in the league and they think that Titans job stinks. I'm not going to argue it. I'm not going to say, even though I think the Titans right now, I think it's a better job than the Falcons. I think the Titans, it's a better job than the Commanders. But I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to argue it because, again, whether or not the Titans have the sixth best job, that's not the issue. The issue is how many people think they do. The sheer volume of people that think this job stinks. And it's time for the Titans to look in the mirror and do something about it. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. There's another thing Charles said about the Titans and about, again, the perception around the league. And it is not a good thing, and it involves the quarterback. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
to make sure that you are getting a coach that is going to be able to work with what seems to be the future of your franchise and quarterback, Will Levis, to make sure that that is right more than anything, if this is the guy you're moving forward with as your quarterback?
So, I think all positions are important, and I get the nature of the quarterback position and what it means to not only our franchise but to the league as well. I share with you guys, before Levis's first start, and it became like a mantra, for me to tell him, I told him you don't have to be number one, you just have to be number one of 11, and so we're not going to make our whole search about Will Levis. We have other guys on this team that are going to require coaching. They're going to require development. But we will bring someone in here that's, sees it the same way and is more than willing to work with him.
That was Rand Carthon. That's not nothing, by the way, what he said there. Now, I think it's the right answer, but it's not nothing. And I'll give you an example. Because if you're the Chargers, right, and you've got a job opening, what are you telling people, prospective coaches? Yeah, it matters if you can work with Justin Herbert or not. When Jacksonville went out a couple years ago, yeah, it matters if you can work with Trevor Lawrence. But that's because those guys are the established guys. So Charles Robinson, again, took a big poll of these league executives and coaches and basically said, where do you rank the open jobs? And the Titans ranked 6th, which is alarming. That is a look in the mirror moment for the Titans. The second thing is about the quarterback. And it seems as if the quarterback, who everybody around here on Twitter thinks is QB1, baby, he's a franchise guy. Everybody's convinced. The owner brought his name up referred to him in her little video with Mike Keith. As all that's going on, Charles says some of these coaches aren't sure.
Some guys that are like, I don't know if the quarterback position's resolved. Like, I personally, you have to be a sort of a Levis fan when you go in there. So that impacts, who's coming in, particularly given that at least the thought process of the candidates is that, Levis was a Rand and Amy influenced draft choice. So if you come in and you're like, I don't know, Levis, this is ultimately going to be the quarterback, do you create friction for yourself when you come into the job? And
okay. Charles is saying some of the candidates are like, I don't know, this feels like that they love that quarterback, and I'm not convinced that I love that quarterback. Mike Lombardi, former GM, said the same thing last week on Pat McAfee, saying that she talked about the quarterback as a good thing. He wasn't ready to say that. Bill Polian on SiriusXM NFL Radio last week said no, he had not seen enough from Levis. So here's the discussion that needs to be had when it comes to the idea of these executives or these coaches or whomever sitting there saying, I'm not so sure about Will Levis, especially the coaches you're going to interview. The decision has to be made right now. How committed are you to Will Levis? It's okay to be 100% committed. The same way, again, the Chargers are committed to Justin Herbert. 100%. It's okay. But just know that if you get a sit down with Brian Callahan, or you get a sit down with Ben Johnson, or you get a sit down with whomever it may be, that if they sit there and they say, like, look, I really don't love that quarterback. I mean, I think there are some good things there, and I think I can work with him, but, I mean, we got to have some backup plans just in case. Okay? Like, okay. If I'm 100% committed and you say that, goodbye. It will not work for us. But if you're not 100% committed, that's okay too. Like, that's okay to say, you know what? I want Sean McVay. I don't care if my next coach, who I think is the next Sean McVay, I don't care if he doesn't like Will Levis. Because we want the best coach to find the best quarterback. And so when that coach comes in here and we love him so much, coach, it's your job. You don't even like Levis. Let's trade him. Now, a lot of people would be upset about that, and you better have a replacement, but it is certainly possible. Let's not kid ourselves about the love for Levis around the league. You've got former general managers, again, that don't have any skin in the game that are saying, I don't love Levis. And the entire league, including you, passed on him when he was up for the draft. So I promise you there's a lot of these coaches out there that don't like Levis. I mean, if Arthur Smith sits down with me and Arthur Smith looks me straight in the face and says, I just love Will Levis, I know he's lying. Because he could have drafted Will Levis and he didn't. So you've got to decide right now. You own the Titans. I own the Titans. Ian owns the Titans. You have to decide right now, if you own this team, how committed are you to this quarterback and how that affects your coaching search. With the Chargers, it's easy. We're 100% committed to Herbert, and every single person who walks through that door is walking through that door in large part because we have Justin Herbert. That's easy. What's hard is the idea of they got a young quarterback who's definitely probably going to be their starter next year, and then he's most likely to be their starter the year after that. And if I'm bad for 2 years, I'm getting fired, especially in this organization where they give out contract extensions and fire you less than a year into them. That's a problem. For instance, Josh McDaniels took the Raiders job. There is no doubt in my mind that when Josh McDaniels walked in there, he did not love Derek Carr. He was not 100% committed to Derek Carr. Because if he was 100% committed to Derek Carr, he wouldn't have fired Derek Carr. Sean Payton was not 100% committed to Russell Wilson. I guarantee you, when Sean Payton sat down with the Broncos brass, he said, look, I'm going to give it a shot with Russ. I'm going to do my best with Russ. But don't hold me to Russ. Because I'm not 100% committed on that. And the Broncos brass at that point said, okay, all right. I don't know how we'll find a quarterback, but we value having Sean Payton as our coach more than we value making sure that our coach loves our quarterback who we've paid $1 gajillion to and have given up all those picks for. So when you sit down, again, with the candidates that you like, and I don't know who they like, I don't know who they don't like. But you have to decide, you, the Titans, you have to decide right then and there, do you like Levis? Are you 100% committed to Levis or not? If I own the team, the answer is no. And I like Levis. But like and 100% committed to are two totally different things. If Bobby Slowick was everything I thought he would be when he sat down and interviewed with me, but he said, look, man, we did our homework on all these quarterbacks last year, and I went to D'Amico, and I went to Nick Caserio, and I said, guys, I can do it with the kid out of Alabama, I can do it with the kid out of Ohio State, and I can do it with the kid out of Florida, but I can't do it with the kid out of Kentucky. If that's the case, then, I mean, I'll just tell you right now, well, do you think you can give it a try? I think I can give it a try. Okay, that's what we're going to do this year. That's how committed I would be. Again, I would love it if one of these coaches like Ben Johnson or Bobby Slogan, oh, yeah, we love Levis. But I'm not requiring it. And it sounds, again, like what Charles Robinson said, it sounds like this may actually be a requirement. Because, again, a lot of people seem to think that Mike Vrabel didn't want to draft Will Levis, whether or not that's true. 615-737-1025. We will get into your phone, 615-737-1025. Speaking of the Chargers, speaking of Mike Vrabel today getting an interview with the Chargers. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5-1063 The Game. Let me tell all the fine folks out there that Stillman and Company is brought to you by Jarrett Company's Fire Commercial Plumbing HVAC Division, 615-515-1270, JarrettCompaniesInc.com. And be sure to tune in to 93.3 Classic Hits tonight for MTSU men's basketball. The Blue Raiders are on the road, taking on UTEP. Pregame starts at 7:30. Tip-off is at 8. And coverage is also available on the 93.3 Classic app and at 93.3ClassicHits.com.
Also today, Mike Vrabel has interviewed with the Los Angeles Chargers, who have interviewed Harbaugh, Shaw, Vrabel. This is all publicly. We don't know who else they've chatted with, but Vrabes gets his first public interview since he was fired from the Tennessee Titans. Everybody believes he's a great ball coach as well. I think all fan bases would be pretty pumped about whoever you hire right now to be the next head coach of your team, which is a beautiful thing. It's not always like that, AJ.
It's never like that. That's what I'm saying. This year is an abundance of riches as far as free agent coaches or coaches that are looking to get another gig.
And allegedly, Aaron Glenn to the Titans, Bill Belichick to the Falcons, Dan Quinn still allegedly to the Seattle Seahawks, Antonio Pierce back to the Raiders, Carolina Panthers, David Tepper's coaching them.
That was McAfee earlier today. And again, the news, Vrabel's getting an interview with the Chargers. We hadn't heard one peep about Vrabel getting an interview, I think in large part because the Patriot way is dead. And here come the Chargers, the analytic Chargers, interviewing the old ball coach, Mike Vrabel. Now, look, let me just say this. I actually think Vrabel would be a good fit with the Chargers. Now, I don't know what they would do for that quarterback. I don't know if he'd keep Kellen Moore and the offensive staff in place. That doesn't seem like Vrabel's MO. It seems like Vrabel's a little bit too hands-on. Would he bring in Arthur Smith and then for another year Justin Herbert has to learn another system? I don't know. I think Arthur Smith could do a lot with Justin Herbert, but I don't think that it really matters that Mike Vrabel's interviewing for the Chargers because the Chargers are going to hire Jim Harbaugh. See, this is we're now kind of playing the negotiating game here, right? So we all know that the Chargers wanted Jim Harbaugh, and we all know that Jim Harbaugh probably wants the Chargers. Why? It's the best job on the market. It's got the best quarterback. As simple as that. Los Angeles is a plus, and then also all the other good players they have, the receivers, the left tackle, the running back, the pass rushers, Derwin James at safety, they've got good players. So we knew even before that national championship game that Jim Harbaugh was likely headed to the Chargers. The Chargers had two interviews that were external minority candidates in Leslie Frazier and David Shaw. David Shaw interviewed for a head coaching job in the NFL. When is the last time? David Shaw hasn't coached Stanford in how many years? 2, 3, I don't know. Stanford hasn't won a football game, it feels like, in 5 years. You don't even know what conference Stanford's going to be in next year. I actually do. They're going to be in the ACC. But David Shaw, head coach of the NFL, laughable. Leslie Frazier, I think Nick Frazier has a better chance at getting the Charger job than Leslie Frazier. But you have to interview two external minority candidates in order to satisfy the Rooney Rule. The Chargers have already interviewed Jim Harbaugh at least once. I think they may have interviewed him twice. Now, did you see what happened 2 days ago? The Atlanta Falcons announced that they interviewed Jim Harbaugh. Did you see what happened yesterday? Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports, Fitz came on the show. Harbaugh is negotiating a new contract with Michigan. Why is Harbaugh negotiating a new contract with Michigan? Because they want the Chargers to up the ante. So what do? You say, okay, well, I like this job, but I'm not sure if I'm going to take this job. And then the Chargers are sitting there saying, no, we're going to offer you, let's say, $10 million a year. We're going to offer you $10 million a year. Harbaugh's going to have full control. They fired the general manager too. They're interviewing general manager candidates. Whoever the general manager is going to be the yes man to Jim Harbaugh. Maybe that's the sticking point, right? Harbaugh didn't have full control in San Francisco. He didn't get along with Trent Baalke. He wants full control, so he's going to interview there, say, I want full control with the Chargers. The Chargers, I don't know. Okay, I'll go interview with the Falcons. Well, they're going to hire Belichick anyway. Okay, I'll go back to Michigan. Now what are you going to do? And this is the counter move from the Chargers. The counter move is, all right, we'll interview Mike Vrabel. There you go. But it's all a charade. It's all a total charade. Jim Harbaugh is going to be the coach of the Chargers. And so I don't think I don't want to say there's not any chance that Vrabel takes that job, but I mean, when I see the Chargers interviewing Leslie Frazier and David Shaw, I'm like, okay. There are two teams that have done this. There are two teams that have taken their middle finger out and stuck it right in the face of the Rooney Rule. The Chargers with David Shaw and Leslie Frazier, and the Raiders with Leslie Frazier and Chris Richard, the former defensive coordinator of the Seahawks. And I want to say he was he the defensive coordinator, Ian, of the Cowboys?
That name does not ring a bell.
I think he might have been. Regardless, like 4 years ago, he was a good coordinator who was a candidate for these jobs. So the Raiders have interviewed those two. Why? Because the Raiders are going to elevate Antonio Pierce. The Chargers interviewed their two. Why? Because they're going to hire Jim Harbaugh. And now they're just negotiating over the money and the power and the structure and the contract. And so Harbaugh's making his move. Oh, I'll go talk to the Falcons. Oh, I'll go back to Michigan. And now the Chargers are making their move. Okay, we'll interview Mike Vrabel, and then we'll see. But quite frankly, the Chargers have their heart set on Harbaugh. And I believe Harbaugh has his heart set on them. And I cannot imagine that Michigan, because this is just I'm flabbergasted by this. I cannot imagine that Michigan would give a Harbaugh the kind of contract he's looking for. That is, if we get in trouble with the NCAA, I still get my money. How could you do that? They gave us a 10-year bowl ban, but I still get all my money. You can't do that. That'd be like me having a contract with the radio station saying, if Jared Stillman ends up getting you guys kicked off the air with the FCC, Jared Stillman still gets all his money. I don't think they'd ever do that. So I don't think Vrabel's getting the Charger job. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. And then the other thing that's come out of this is, oh yeah, he's got some interest from the Falcons, and they're going to go with Belichick. Again, that's we're trying to figure out how much money here, who's under there, who's this, that. And I don't know if this is the case or not when it comes to Vrabel. But in some of these offsets in these contracts, some of them say, like, you have to make attempts to get another job. So, like, we won't pay out the money if we don't think you're attempting to get another job, which would lead Vrabel to using the Chargers the same way the Chargers are using him. 615-737-1025. Let's get to your phones. Texters says, speaking of the Charles Robinson takes, says, I really agree the Titans need to look in the mirror, but it felt like the people Charles Robinson talked to were really turned off because Vrabel was fired, and he was such a good coach. I do think a lot of people think Vrabel was a good coach. And I mean, again, look, use the Chargers. I don't think he's going to go there, but I do believe that he could win with the Chargers. I really do. Because they've got the quarterback in place. Arthur Smith is available. I mean, look, if Vrabel was looking for my advice, and I think we know that over the last 6 years, he has at no time sought my advice. Even when I tried to help him out with Craig Aukerman, I tried to help him out with Skoronski at left tackle. He wasn't interested in my advice. But if I could give him any advice, it would be whatever you do. Either, and again, this is if he takes the Chargers job, which I don't think he's going to get. Either leave Kellen Moore in place on the offense, and I'm not a huge Kellen Moore fan, but a lot of people are. Leave Kellen Moore in charge of the offense and stay out of it, which you know he can't do, or bring Arthur. Do not bring Tim Kelly. Do not bring Todd Downing. Bring Arthur and put Arthur with Herbert. Some of these people text so much stupid stuff into the text line. Texter into the text line says, I have to take up with McAfee saying that Aaron Glenn is likely who the Titans will get. Unfortunately, I feel like McAfee is right, and it will continue the mediocrity with the Titans. Again, I can't tell you, I can't guarantee you that Aaron Glenn's not going to get this job, but I would go nuts. I'm going to go nuts if they hire any defensive coach, but if they hire Aaron Glenn, whose defenses aren't even that good in Detroit, we're going to have some problems. I mean, again, they can do whatever they want. They own the team. I don't. But if Aaron Glenn is the head coach of the Tennessee Titans and it doesn't work, by the time because the Titans, they won't give up on him after 1 year because it's like, oh, no, it's not his fault. It's all Vrabel and Robinson's fault. And so they wouldn't give up on him after 1 year. And so then he'd go into year 2, and now you're getting dangerously close to 2026 and then 2027. You'd have a single ticket sold in your new stadium. That's not going to work. 615-737-1025. Speaking of Vrabel to the Chargers, there is one thing that I do have to do. I cannot let this go. Can't let it go. And then your phone, Stillman and Company, 1025-1063, the game. You can just always redo a contract. Like right now, everybody says the Chargers. This is the team. If the cap is real, Teresa, this is the team that's going to get bit by the boogeyman this year. The Chargers. They're like $30 million over the cap. They're paying Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert and Joey Bosa all this money, and they got to give Rashawn Slater a new contract, and they kind of stink. If the Chargers have to tear it down, and I mean tear it down, not move on from Keenan Allen because he's old, but if they have to just straight up tear it down, then the cap's real, and I'll admit it. But I bet they won't.
Well, we're going to have to wait and see. But right now I'm looking at the 24 cap projections. There are 11 teams, starting with the Packers at 4.5 over the cap at this moment, which means they're going to have to do some accounting, creative accounting. And, yes, the NFL is absolutely great at creative accounting. I'm just saying that eventually the tab comes due. You've got to pay somebody, and you got to pay the price.
There you go. That was Teresa on our show a couple weeks ago before they fired Mike Vrabel. I love Teresa with all my heart, but one of her big defenses of Mike Vrabel was, what was he supposed to do? The cap was so bad. John Robinson ruined the cap. It was all the cap. And here are the Chargers. $40 million over the cap. $40 million over. People on Twitter are like, I think they may have to trade or release Joey Bosa. Fat freaking chance. So if Mike Vrabel was so handcuffed by the salary cap that was here, then why is he interviewing for the Chargers job where they're $40 million over the cap? Somebody explain that to me. They going to cut Justin Herbert? What are they going to do? The Chargers aren't even good right now. Rashawn Slater needs a new contract. So Mike Vrabel is so stupid that he's going to try to take that job, which again, I don't think he's going to get it. And I'm not even sure if he wants it, but he's definitely not going to get it because Harbaugh's getting that job. But Mike Vrabel, who again had this terrible offensive line last year because of the cap, is going to go to the team that's not even that good and is $40 million over the cap. When will you people catch on? You know what I've started to notice, that I think some people are starting to get there. And I'll tell you where I think people are starting to get there on. And that is restructuring a contract. Remember, we all used to think, and I used to be one of these people too. We all used to think that restructuring a contract, redoing his contract so we can afford Johnny, was some sort of selfless sacrifice that was given because I want to make my team better. Then we found out what it is they just give you your money up front. So yeah, we owe you $18 million this year. We're going to give you $17 million in a check. Then you're going to make $1 million over the course of the year. And, that'll spread out your cap hit over the years. Boy, that's real selfless. I'd like my money up front too. And I think most people, 3 years ago, everybody thought that was really selfless and just a true investment in the team. And I think now everybody knows what restructuring a contract means. So nobody looks at it and says, wow, what a great guy, Harold Landry, for you restructuring your contract. So I think that's like the first baby step towards everybody else realizing that dead cap charges and none of that stuff matters. None of it. What matters is, can you draft good players? The franchise tag matters. That's got real juice, not the cap. Adam in Portland's up next here on Stillman and Company. What's up, Adam?
I kind of like Mike Vrabel to the Chargers. I know it's probably not going to happen. I've been hearing the same thing you have about the momentum with the Harbaugh.
It's going to be Harbaugh.
But I don't even like Vrabel. Like, overall, I don't like him.
You hate Vrabel.
But if you look at it, like, if everything is in place for him, he can keep it from sinking. Like, I do agree to that. I just don't think he's anything special, man. Like, I look at it as, and I still think he got screwed, and I've said it. I know you said everybody forgot about him when we fired him. I did not forget about Malarkey. I feel like that guy got the rawest deal ever. Because when he left, when he come here and Wisenhunt left, like, it was so toxic. We thought we were going to lose the team. Like, he was a good coach. And he's really, like, going down in the history books as, like, somebody who was like, nah. But he was great, dude. Like,
I agree with you on Malarkey. I agree completely. I mean, as far as Vrabel, thank you for your call, Adam. As far as Vrabel is concerned with the Chargers, like, right now, Vrabel is receiving interest per sources. Surprised Diana's not the one breaking that news, by the way. Vrabel is receiving interest from the Seahawks and the Falcons, as well as the Chargers, whom are going to give their job to Jim Harbaugh. The Falcons, who are going to give their job to Bill Belichick, but they're still, receiving interest, whatever. The team I would want him to go to the Chargers. Because if he goes to the Chargers, then every week it's going to be, the Chargers are 4-2. Oh, why do we trade Vrabel? Whereas if he goes to Seattle, like, yeah, but they don't have a quarterback, and it's just like, the Chargers is going to be like, okay, Let's see who was right and who was wrong. Don is up next on Mike Vrabel. Thank you for waiting. What's up, Donnie?
Hey, love your show.
Thank you.
My thing is, I think the game should finance a trip for you wherever Vrabel ends up and his introductory press conference. You need to be there. Even if you bring Koharski, you guys need to be there and start thinking up questions. It would be a blast.
But why?
Huh?
Why? Like, why would I? Okay, so let's use the Chargers for an example, right? I just flew out to San Diego last week. Now, I know they're in LA now, but it's same flight, right? It's like last month. It's a 4-hour flight there, a 4-hour flight back. I'm probably looking at staying in Inglewood out to LAX, so we're probably talking about $350, $400 Southwest for 8 hours of my life. And then probably have to stay the night, 2 nights. We're probably looking at $600 on that. So now I just spent $1,000 to go ask Mike Vrabel 3 questions of a team that I don't care about. Why would I do that?
Well, I didn't say your money. I said the game's money. And it would be entertainment. You and Koharski both could think up some stuff. I think it'd be great. I think it'd be great entertainment.
I don't think he would. I don't think he'll miss us. Thank you for your call, Don. I do not think that he will miss us whatsoever. But no, I have no interest in that. Here's the thing. We're going to pay attention to Vrabel because Vrabel was immensely popular. Okay? Mike Mularkey was not popular. Adam's right. Mike Mularkey got a raw deal. He was, I want to say, 18-36 in Buffalo, where he didn't get to pick his defensive coaching staff, and Jacksonville, where he was fired after 1 year because they hired a new owner, or they got a new owner who hired a new GM and they fired him. So I didn't think that was really fair. I thought he did a good job. And I thought, again, when you do a good job, you get to keep doing your job. They fired him. They hired Vrabel. Mularkey was not overly popular, and so nobody was sad when he got fired, apparently, except for me and Adam from Portland. Well, Vrabel was popular. And so it was a controversial decision to fire him. Now, I'm not against it, but it was a controversial decision. And because it was a controversial decision, there is going to be a lot of interest in whether or not Vrabel succeeds going forward. I, quite frankly, do not think, unless it's the Seahawks, I do not think Vrabel is going to get a job in this hiring cycle, nor am I necessarily sure that he wants a job in this hiring cycle. But when he does get a job, it is going to be a big deal around here. I'm not saying it's like Belichick and the Jets, but there's going to be a lot of animosity if Vrabel wins somewhere else. And he might. Texture says, weird all of a sudden this anti-Vrabel talk. It wasn't this way before. Nashville is a tough place. They love you one day, they hate you the next. I know it's that way many places. Just because he's gone, no reason to talk down on him. That's a weak move. Are they talking about me? Is the texter saying, hey, here you are talking down on Vrabel? Because I don't think with me it was when you're here they love you, when you're gone they hate you. Because, well, quite frankly, I've been on Vrabel's ass for a while. And let's not kid ourselves. I don't think Mike Vrabel likes me very much. Not that that bothers me at all. I do not care. But it's not like if somebody were to go up to him and say, hey, Jared Stillman was talking about you and the Chargers. I mean, I'm sure they weren't talking about me. The texter was probably talking about the callers. But if they were like, hey, Jared Stillman was talking about you, I guarantee he wouldn't say, he said that? He said that I can't keep my hands out of the offensive side of the ball? He said that the cap is fake? What? Jared Stillman said that. Come on now. TD joins us next. The TD Power Hour, Teron Davenport. We already know who TD's number one candidate is. But I did hear something fascinating that is not nothing about his candidate. We'll get to that and his candidate and the other candidates, and we'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5-1063 The Game. Tune in this Saturday to 94.9 The Fan for Vandy basketball. The Commodores will take on Mississippi State on the road. Tip-off 2:30. Pre-game is at 2, and coverage is also available on the 94.9 The Fan app. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. TD is here, Teron Davenport. TD, always good to see you.
Always good to be seen, man. What's going on?
Okay, let's get right into the coaching search. It feels like you've got a little bit of tea for us on the Titans coaching search.
No, I don't really have any tea. I just, Thomas Brown, he interviewed today. I looked into him a lot on Tuesday, and I talked to some people in his camp, and I was actually impressed with what I came back with. So that was really all it was. I know that it's not just the token Rooney Rule interview that some people think that it is. He is a legitimate candidate, and you look at –
You mean like David Shaw with the Chargers today?
Listen, man, I'm not going to comment on something I don't know about, but it does appear to look that way, or Leslie Frazier with whoever. Who did he interview with, the Raiders?
He interviewed with the Raiders and the Chargers.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, from afar, it looks like some organizations are just checking off the box, but I know for a fact that that's not what this is here with Thomas Brown. And it's just funny to me because, in general, anyone who works with Sean McVay is considered a hot ticket. Well, you look at Thomas Brown. He spent multiple seasons with Sean McVay. In fact, Sean McVay thought so highly of him that he made him his assistant head coach. He worked with the running backs as well as the tight ends, and we know the tight end position is something that's really important. Why? Because you're involved in both the pass game and the run game, so you do have that. And as I said, he was the assistant head coach there. While he was there, he worked with a guy named Liam Cohen. And we know the tie to Will Levis there. So there's a lot of things that you could look at to kind of connect some dots and see, hey, this guy would actually be pretty good for this organization. I went back and watched him, his introductory press conference when he got to the Panthers, and the different things he said, about it's non-negotiable to be physical at all 11 positions. He talked about how it starts up front, and he discussed, using tempo at times, but how you had to earn the right to use tempo. This is a guy that NFLPA, they voted as the second most liked offensive coordinator in the league. And I know Carolina had the results that they had there. That wasn't all on Thomas Brown. He was the OC, but remember, he was under Frank Reich, and there was kind of like a merger of ideas. So you do have that, but there were some games where they did well, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, two of those, later in the year were games in which Thomas Brown was calling the plays and had control of the offense. So we could get a little bit deeper if you want about him. I know that he and Sean McVay, they've been friends since high school. They played against each other. They were high school rivals there in Georgia. But there's a lot about Thomas Brown. If you listen to Talking with TD this week, I have about a 2-minute excerpt from his press conference there when he first got to Carolina. And, you could feel the energy. You could feel the excitement, the passion, and those are all good things. That doesn't necessarily mean that he'll automatically be a good coach. I believe he will, so you have that. But my number one candidate remains Brian Callahan. You're not going to move me off of that.
Don't waste all the energy on a guy who's not number one in the TD heart.
Yeah, well, it's not the TD heart. It's just as far as I think what would be best for the organization. You know what I mean? So I think Callahan would absolutely be best. And there's more that I could tell you about him because I went and did some more digging since the last time we spoke.
Well, speaking of more on him, this was Zach Taylor, your colleague at ESPN, Ben Baby, who covers the Bengals. Put this out. This was Zach Taylor talking about Brian Callahan, who is atop TD's hot board. Here's what the head coach of the Bengals said.
He coordinates everything having to do with it. He establishes the whole structure of our offense. On game day, he and I are in constant communication. That is calling this staff followed us for a week and saw it would be, no wonder everyone's so high on Brian.
Okay. So I hear that, and I'm like, how much of that is a guy pumping his guy up? How much of that is Zach Taylor saying, hey, you guys need to get in on this guy? He checks, TD, a lot of the boxes that I'm looking for in the head coach. The calling of the plays, it's not nothing that he doesn't do it, but Zach Taylor didn't call the plays, and Kevin O'Connell didn't call the plays before they got those jobs. So it's not everything that he doesn't do it. What is it about Callahan that you specifically like that puts him ahead of the other quote-unquote gurus like Slowick and Johnson and the other guys? I like the mix of everything that he has. And in fact, he, if I'm not mistaken, he is the longest tenured offensive coordinator in the league right now. I'm pretty sure that is the case, but you could correct me if I'm wrong. But that's crazy. That means that everybody hates their offensive coordinator. Well, it's a position that sees turnover, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean everybody hates the offensive coordinator, because Zach Taylor clearly loves Brian Callahan. Sure. But it's pretty clear that Callahan is going to get a job somewhere, so that's turnover. But and then your guy pitcher will probably replace him, or Troy Walters. But staying with Callahan, the thing that I like the most about him is just the mixture of everything, right? He's been a coordinator since 2019. He's worked with so many outstanding quarterbacks. He has ties to the magic trees, right? The magic tree is either McVay or Shanahan, and actually, McVay via Shanahan. You know what I mean? Shanahan via McVay, however you want to put it. I mean, it's really Daddy Shanahan is where the tree starts. And then you can go to Holmgren and all those guys. Here you go, Jarrett. Brian Callahan worked with Gary Kubiak, who was both played quarterback for Mike Shanahan and coached with them, and we know what the Broncos did under Gary Kubiak. Callahan was a part of that staff, so you have that. But then you have this, right? And what you could do if you want to, I sound like a preacher saying, take your Bible out and turn the chapter. But look, if you go online and you look at the Bengals schedule, right? Week 6, they go against the Seahawks. It's 17-13. They win the game, right? And Brian Callahan, before the bye week, because this was the game before the bye week, Callahan laid into them. I mean, like laid into the offense, let them have it, like gave them a real bad talking to, so to speak, right? Set them on the bye week with that to think about. As I said, they won the game. The problem was they had 214 total yards of offense. He hated that, right? So they come back, and what happens when they come back? He lays into them again, okay? And what ended up happening with that, right? After the bye week, they went to San Francisco, and they dropped 31 on the 49ers. 31-17. They beat the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco. Orlando Brown Jr., the left tackle, he said this about Callahan after Callahan called the offense out publicly and in the meeting. He said, "I have the utmost respect for BC. The way he carries himself and handles his business, I can't say enough great things about him. That meeting was somewhat needed and made sure that everyone had their mind right, especially heading into the bye. Everybody got it, but that's how it should be. He was just being honest. You need those things at times. I believe every man in this locker room holds themselves accountable, but to have BC call us out, kind of let guys know in front of our coaches and our peers is good. Hey, this has to be better. This has to be better. This is good, but this can be better." That's one of the major players on your team saying that Callahan coming out and saying what he said to the team was ultra effective and a part of what happened that game against the 49ers. I personally, if I'm running an organization, I want a guy that's not going to be afraid to say something like that and able to do it in a way in which it will be received in the matter that this just what I just read to you was. So for me, those are the reasons why I say Brian Callahan should be the coach. Now watch him end up coaching another team, and it'll be what it'll be. But I think that he's the best match, and as Dan Graziano reported, he's the first up for the second interview. So the thing I would say about Brian Callahan is what has impressed me about the Bengals and the Bengals coaching staff. Joe Burrow is a winner. I could coach Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow would find a way to win something, right? Ed Orgeron won a national championship with him. But what about when Joe Burrow got hurt, yes, even though they didn't win all those games, I was very impressed with what they were able to do with Jake Browning at quarterback. Yep. That is coaching to me. Absolutely. That's coaching, because you have to be able to have your scheme work without the key players, because you're going to lose somebody at some point. You know what I mean? So that's just bound to happen. So the way that he was able to adjust it. But that's also something I like about Thomas Brown. He talked about how it's a players' league and how as a coach you have to
build your scheme to the players. And that's important. Not all coaches are like that, right? A lot of times you have that square peg and you're trying to push it in a circle hole. But Thomas Brown has an understanding that that's not how you do it.
Can I give you my theory, though, on Thomas Brown? Like, I wouldn't hire him. But
why?
Because even though it's the same thing I feel for Bryce Young. I don't blame Thomas Brown for being 32nd in the league in total yards and total offense, because that whole thing was a complete and total gong show.
Mm-hmm.
They had no players. The offensive line's a mess. The left tackle they drafted real high a couple years ago is terrible.
Ike Ekwonu.
Awful. I mean, Frank Reich, I think, sometimes I think he may be a little over his skis, and the owner we know is too much. But I can't also put Bryce Young in the Pro Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, I don't blame Bryce Young for the season that the Panthers had, and I don't blame Thomas Brown for the season that the Panthers had. But I can't, give them promotions and say, okay, it's absolutely not their fault. Go ahead and ignore it. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you a question, though. Matt LaFleur, before he got the Packers job, that Titans offense was ranked, what, 27?
Oh, I couldn't stand LaFleur.
I know. Mike Vrabel, before he got this job here, what, the worst defense in the league?
Awful.
Here's my thing. There's more to being a coach than just the X's and O's. Now, if you could get the X's and O's, which I believe you get with Thomas Brown, that's good. But you got to have someone that's able to lead an organization, is able to be the CEO, right? And I think that's something that you have to have. And I feel, again, this is from afar, just watching. I spent about an hour and a half, 2 hours watching videos of him and just doing research. And I came away like, hey, I think this guy could be a really good leader. You know what I mean? So, and the other thing is, it's just funny to me because anyone else who works with Sean McVay, oh, yeah, he's a guy you got to get him a job. You got to hire him. Why isn't that same energy given to Thomas Brown?
So I have two thoughts behind that. The first is that he did go to the Panthers. You know what I mean? It's like, if he were the offensive coordinator of the Rams right now, I think he'd have a better case than what happened with the Panthers. Like, as bad as, that whole thing around him is, that's still he's a part of that. The second thing is, it's always the offensive coordinator is always the number 2 guy, and they never made him the offensive coordinator with the Rams. And they had that turnover, right? Like, O'Connell leaves, and then they bring in Cohen, and then Cohen leaves, and it's like they could have made Thomas Brown the OC, but then he went to Carolina, and so they made Zach Robinson or whoever the OC
there. He took another opportunity. But this is the same thing that happened with Matt LaFleur. Mike LaFleur is in San Francisco or wherever he is now. I think he's in Houston. I don't know. But nevertheless, Matt LaFleur, he, went to the Titans and then got the job with the Packers. So the Sean McVay tie is always something like a feather in the cap, but it just doesn't seem to be that for Thomas Brown, and I just cram to understand why. And Carolina, I get it, you mentioned Carolina, but he didn't have play calling responsibilities there for a good portion.
That whole thing was so screwed.
Right, and then that's the other thing.
That's like if we redrafted the draft from last year, Carolina would take C.J. Stroud, and then Bryce Young probably goes number 2.
Yeah, and
Even
that
though
whole
Young had a bad year.
We know that whole situation was just a dumpster fire,
disaster.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know Brian Callahan is number 1 on TD's list. Well, what if Santa can't bring the number 1 option?
Cancel Christmas.
What is on after that? We'll get TD's thoughts. We'll do that next at the TD Power Hour. It's Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. Stillman and Company, TD Power Hour, Teron Davenport with us. Okay, TD, we know Brian Callahan is your number one choice for the Titans head coaching position, and you make some great points, and he's very certainly a viable candidate and getting a second interview. What if he gets snatched up by somebody else?
You know, that's a really good question, and I've been asked that before, and it's tough really to say. Bobby Slowick is so intriguing, but it's just one of those things where, and I was talking to Chase about this before coming on, it's like, what if he's not ready to be a leader like so many people in Houston are saying? What if that is the case? What if the idea that some of the guys on offense feel that the success there is just as much, if not more, due to them being successful on the field, like being productive on the field, than the scheme? What if that's the case, right? So it's tough, man. You want to say Bobby Slowick. Ben Johnson is someone that you obviously want to talk about, because even though he doesn't have the Sean McVay ties, he knows the Sean McVay offense, because he had to take a lot of the concepts that McVay had with Jared Goff and marry that to some of his ideas and produce an offense that is conducive to Jared Goff's success. So that's definitely something like, hey, man, this guy clearly showed that he could recalibrate things to make it work for a particular quarterback. That's what you want here for Will Levis. So he's somebody, but I just don't know that he's going to be available for this job. But then also you look at, I think it was Josina Anderson, she reported that he wants, 12 to 15 million to be a coach. Like, is that something that Amy Adams-Strunk and the crew could stomach?
Well, so I was thinking about it in this regard too. Adam Peters just got the Washington job as the general manager. If Ben Johnson gets there's a big bidding for Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson gets that kind of money, Ben Johnson is the number one guy in charge. Not Adam Peters. I just waited forever to get this job. I'm going to go ahead and give it to Ben Johnson and let him be. No. That is something that could kind of kick him down the list.
That's
if
a
he's
great
got those
point.
Massive salary demands.
That's a great point. You never know. But, nevertheless, he's intriguing because of that ability to make things work with Jared Goff. You have to look at that. Aaron Glenn is intriguing. That was the top-ranked coordinator, according to the NFLPA, right?
I don't want a defensive coach, TD.
I get it. And I'm with you there. If I was a fan, I would say, hey, you want to go more offense because you don't want to have a recycled scheme over and over again. But, you look at the leadership that he brings, and you look at how critical of a part he has been to the Lions' success, even though the defense isn't, strapping too many teams. They're still solid in certain areas. Funny thing is they're number 2 stopping the run. And, that matches with what the Titans have wanted to do in the past. But I really can't – I say all that to say, I can't really think of a number 2. If you know what, I'll go ahead and say it. If it was, for me ranking, I would go Callahan, Slowick, Thomas Brown, Ben Johnson. I'm gonna go Callahan, Ben Johnson, Thomas Brown, Slowick. That's the order.
Thomas Brown over Slowick?
Yeah, I really believe Thomas Brown is ready. And one of the things that I talked about in the opening segment of this was the ties to Liam Cohen. I believe Thomas Brown, if he got the job, he would bring Liam Cohen in as the OC. If I'm Liam Cohen, I would be chomping at the bit to work with Will Levis again. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I would be chomping at the bit to be able to go into Nashville and bring some modernization to that offense and some explosiveness. You got a high draft pick in the first couple rounds there, and you could get the O-lineman, you could get the receiver.
More guards.
Hey, listen, guards are important too. I know you don't like that, but, it's important to protect the interior part of the pocket. But nevertheless, the way, Thomas Brown, I like the staff that I could see him bringing. And you look at his opening presser, he talked about the relationship with Deuce Staley. Now, Deuce that's my dog, man. I'll fool with Deuce Staley. That's my boy. Going back to Philly.
I bet he wishes he was still Wasn't he in Detroit before?
He was in Detroit. He left and went to Carolina to be with Frank Wright. And sometimes like you go with I mean, look, you got to take risks. You know what I mean? And he did that. But I could see like Deuce Staley coming in and being the running backs coach. And also, if you remember 2017, the Eagles special teams was pretty doggone good. Deuce Staley was assistant special teams coach as well. So you have that, man. I that staff could be pretty good.
So here would be my one thing on the Thomas Brown versus Bobby Slowick thing, which is at what point should I be able to consider Bryce Young, rookie quarterback, offensive coordinator, not so good, and C.J. Stroud, second pick, rookie quarterback, offensive coordinator, incredible. Like, I understand that coaching searches are not linear. It's not cut and dry. It's not, take this guy out and he instantly is magic here. It never works like that.
Jared, I'm going to use your own statement and your own argument against yourself. What have you said time and time again about the Houston Texans? Oh, they've spent a lot of money on the offensive line. They
spent a lot of money.
Right. Oh, they have a lot of weapons. Man, that Nico Collins, who was a guest, I'm talking with TD when he was coming out.
Nico Collins, a bad boy.
Right. Tank Dell. Oh, C.J. Stroud.
$30 million left tackle.
Oh, you know what I mean? So, yeah, and I'm not taking anything away from Bobby Slowick. Don't get me wrong. I think that he's awesome from a play calling perspective. I'm not taking anything away from him. But if you're going to look at the two situations, Ike Ekwonu,
old man Adam Thielen.
Right. So it's like, okay.
You're right. Like, this is a good argument that you've made because, I mean, trading away DJ Moore was truly the stupidest thing that they could have done to screw up the quarterback that they were trading away DJ Moore to get.
That's a quarterback's best friend. Oh, and just real quick, I know you love Malik Neighbors.
Oh, I do.
Did you see Jordan Reed's player comparison for Malik Neighbors?
Was it DJ Moore?
It sure was.
DJ Moore's pretty good.
Yeah. I was funny story, right? I was a coach for him at Deshaun Jackson camp in North Philly way back when he was a little bit.
And he was
crazy.
like, TD, one of these days I'm going to make $150 million bucks, and I'm going to give you $8 of it.
And I said, yeah, drop down and give me 50 push-ups. Now.
TD is with us, 615-737-1025. We'll hit your phones at the end of the hour, as we always do. 615-737-1025. Will Levis. How important is Will Levis to this search? How important should he be? How important is it that the coaches that are interviewing for this job tell the truth and what the Titans do about it? We'll get to that next here on the TD Power Hour. Plus Vrabel interviewing with the Chargers. We'll get some thoughts on that as well. Twice daily, they want to send you to Italy. That's right. Buy any made-to-order Italian sub and use your rewards app to get entered to win. Every sub that you may get at Twice Daily is a chance to win, but mobile-ordered Italian subs count as 2 times the entries. If you want to go to Italy, visit twicedaily.com/sweepstakes to learn more info on how you could do that. Twice Daily's made-to-order offerings allow you to get exactly what you want when you want it. Customize sandwiches with all the preferred meats and cheeses and get bagels with all the fixings and have the snacks prepared for you the second you order. You make it yours, they make it fresh. Twice Daily. Download the Twice Daily app today and join their loyalty program to unlock special discount savings and so much more. It pays to be a member with Twice Daily where you earn points and save money with every visit. If you're looking for convenience, Twice Daily has you covered. Twice Daily, fresh all day.
she did the right thing in terms of not trying to trade him. I'm not sure she did the right thing thinking she can replace him, especially when you go through their drafts and you look at all the failed first-round picks. And look, Mike wanted Ryan Cowling. What Adam said, I've heard the same thing. I think it's completely accurate. And they decided to hire Rand, and Rand comes from a different program, a different set of circumstances, and he wants to run his team. The press release that she issued that said that she thinks she has a bright young quarterback, for me, would be alarming because I'm not sure I'm there on Will Levis yet. I don't see that. I haven't seen that in his play as of yet.
That was Michael Lombardi on the Pat McAfee Show. And I like Levis, TD, but I also know that a lot of people don't like Levis, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if people loved him so much, one of those teams would have probably drafted him in the first round, and yet he is right now the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. He's probably the most positive thing that the Titans, fans can hold on to. So I ask you this question. How important do you think Will Levis is to this coaching search from this standpoint? When a coach walks in, if you're interviewing for the Charger job, like, you better have a plan for Justin Herbert or else they're going to kick you out. If you're interviewing, like Josh McDaniels did for the Raiders job, it was like, try to work with Derek Carr, but if I can't, then I'm going to fire him. Okay. Where are the Titans when it comes to Will Levis and this job?
I think this job, this next head coach, absolutely has to have a plan for Will Levis. You're a defensive guy, you better be talking up somebody like a Liam Cohen or somebody along those lines, because Will Levis, to me, and I'm a Jeffrey Simmons advocate, Will Levis is the most important player. Number 8 is number 1 in the program. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's the most important player. His success will catapult this team to being competitive. If he doesn't succeed, man, it's going to be tough for a lot of people around here in Nashville. So it's of the utmost importance to have a plan for him. It's of the utmost importance to be able to continue to develop him. And it's of the utmost importance to surround him with talent. That's something that has to happen. So that's not just on the head coach. That's on Rand Carthon and A-Rob, Anthony Robinson, and Chad Brinker and Brian Gardner and Vin Marino to get the contracts right. It's on all of them.
So I guess what I'm wondering, though, is, like, let's put yourself in the shoes of the owner. And, one of these coaches comes in there and you just are knocked away by this coach's program. I took a look. Floyd had a book for when he interviewed with the Seahawks, and it was a very detailed book. And I looked in through that and, like, it's detailed. And so let's say that one of these coaches comes in there and just knocks your freaking socks off. But he says, Mr. Davenport, with all due respect, I did not like Will Levis coming out. Like, I was not a humongous fan. In our draft room, I had him as the 5th quarterback in this class. I even had him behind Aiden O'Connell or something like that.
Oof.
I will work with him. I mean, he will be the starting quarterback next year, but I can't make you any promises that I think I can make him a superstar because I don't see it with him. And you're like, wow, on one hand, I really, really love this coach. Like, he's got the best plan. He's got so organized. He just, rings the bell for me. But on the other hand, he just does not believe in this quarterback that I have. Do you say, well, I guess it's not going to work out here? Or do you say, okay, let's try to make it work with Levis and then go from there?
Yeah, that's information that I don't think the coach should disclose, to be honest with you. But, I mean, look, transparency is wonderful. You do want to be transparent. I just –
it does remind me, by the way.
What's that?
Of when they made the switch from Mariota to Tannehill. I was listening to an old Jared and the GM podcast. This was months ago, like when they made the switch from Tannehill to Levis. And I was listening to an old Jared and the GM podcast, and I was banging on Vrabel saying, he said when he took the job, he was going to be the one to unleash Mariota, and he said that. And the old man laughed and said, he said whatever it took to get the job.
Exactly.
Because these things pay $6 million, and there's 32 of them in the world. So you're probably right. Like,
it's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those things. You get your foot in the door, and you figure it out from there. That's really what it boils down to. I just think Will Levis, and I mean, look, that was one of the cornerstones of this team being attractive to the next candidate, right? That's what Miss Amy Adams Strong, that's what she said, right? Bright young future for a quarterback. So you better have some type of plan to make him work. And I think that's honestly, why do you even want the job? Because if you go in there and it doesn't work with him, you're probably going to get fired. Right? I mean, you look at Jay Gruden, right? What did he do? He's, oh, yeah, man, I'll make RG3 work. And you saw the back and forth RG3.
Yeah, they're buddies, huh?
Yeah, right. Very much so.
But see, this is where
that's
that
the thing.
process.
But that's the thing, right? You go in there and you say that you can make it work, and you darn well better make it work, because if you don't, you're not going to have the job too much longer after the experiment fails.
So this is where I think, again, like that on the front end really matters, because if I want this job, but I in my heart don't believe in Will Levis, I know that if I don't communicate to that to the owner on the front end, like I know I'm going to get fired, because I already don't think Levis is any good. I'm going to take the job, and Levis is going to stink, and I'm going to get blamed for it. And then Levis is going to stink again. They're going to get rid of Levis, and they're going to get rid of me at the same time. But if I tell the owner on the front end, like, I don't believe in Levis, but I will try my darndest, and it doesn't work in year one, then the owner might let me get rid of Will Levis and let me go get another quarterback. You know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, I don't think that's the case, because I firmly believe that Rand Carthon's success is hinged upon Levis, his success also. So let's say, God forbid, you know, it goes left, it's going to go left for, you know, some people. There's going to be a new regime in here. And what does a new regime typically want? Their own coach. So for me, look, you don't have that fear of failure. I think failure is a good thing to understand and acknowledge the possibility of, but you have that power of positive thinking. You say, man, I'm going to make this work. I can make this work. And if you feel that you can't make it work, hey, there's 5 or 6 other jobs that you could look at getting.
Sure.
You don't have to take this job, even though it is one of 32. There are other ones available. So don't take a job that you don't think that you can make it work.
Oh, sure. Like, that's why I wouldn't take the Panthers job.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are talking about Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson got offered the Panthers job last year, and he figured he needed another year of seasoning in Detroit. Maybe. Or maybe he was like, I better not take that Panthers job.
You saw what DeMeco Ryan said. He said, if you're going to take that opportunity, you better for darn sure make us the right one. And look, let me say this.
He was talking about here when he said that, too.
let me say this, though. Let's say, there could be a marriage of 2 guys that I really like as far as candidates. I mean, let's say, they hire Brian Callahan and Thomas Brown doesn't get any head coaching offers. Why not bring him in as the OC?
Perfect.
You know what I mean?
Perfect.
That is always a possibility, but I don't care who gets the job, whether it's, I don't care who it is. You better keep Charles London. Absolutely better keep him as a QB coach and pass game coordinator, because I know from talking to Will Levis, not just once he started, but I'm talking about from August to September, October, Charles London was very, very critical to his development and ability to be ready to play when he was called upon.
Do I need that if Liam Cohen's my offensive coordinator?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It goes back to, and I mentioned this before, it goes back to 2016, Carson Wentz coming into the Eagles, right? They had what I called a QB incubator. You had Press Taylor there, who's now obviously the OC with the Jaguars. He was there as assistant quarterback coach. You had John DeFilippo, who played in college and was a coordinator before. He was the quarterback coach.
He was a superstar quarterback coach, and then he went off. And it wasn't the same.
And then you have Frank Reich.
Sure.
And you had Doug Peterson, 2 guys that played in the league. You had those 4 guys there to help develop Carson Wentz and make sure that he was ready. Now, if you remember, Carson Wentz didn't get the starting job until a week or 2 before the season started. And mind you, he only played about 10 snaps in the preseason before getting his chest blown out by one of the Bucs linebackers. So he was still ready to play, and they had him. So I say all that to say you could never have too many guys to help you with the quarterback position. And that brings me to something else about Thomas Brown. Very, very close to Jim Caldwell. Right, so that's an assistant. If he got the head coaching job, he could bring in. And Josh McCown, a guy who recently got done playing. He was the QB coach last year there with the Panthers. And obviously, say what you want about Bryce Young, the Panthers, but that's another guy that you could have just on the sideline as somebody to be there when he comes off the field. You can never have too many people to help develop your quarterback.
TD is with us. We'll do your phones next. 615-737-1025. 615-737-1025, the TD Power Hour. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. Stillman and Company, TD's with us for the TD Power Hour. TD, do you have a thought or do you want to go right to the phone?
Two quick thoughts. We didn't touch on Terrell Williams, the D-line coach, getting the Senior Bowl head coach opportunity. He'll coach the American team. I'm really excited for him about that. I talked to him. He's excited as well. One other thing with the Combine, they signed a deal to have it there in Indianapolis next year, too, 2025. So I'm ultra pumped about that because it shouldn't be anywhere else except Indianapolis.
So when I heard the news that Terrell Williams was going to be the head coach in the Senior Bowl, I said there is one person in the world I know that cares about this.
Yep.
TD.
Look, I was so hyped and excited.
Mr. Senior Bowl.
Yeah, and we'll have updates, whenever you need me. Definitely make sure you holler at me. We can have updates right there from the Senior Bowl. I got you.
There you go. Kinston. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Kinston's been waiting patiently. Kinston, you're up with TD.
What's going on, fellas? Question for you, TD. Something that I brought up with Jerry on the text line a few days ago, but, he's a Bobby Slowick fan, so I think he kind of dismissed it a little bit, but maybe it could have come off better in person. With the situation with Brian Callahan, I think it could be a buy one, get three free, and the 3 free could be his dad coming over as an offensive line coach. And is eager to hear what you think about the prospects of how that could influence T. Higgins. I know they could franchise tag him and keep him, but I would definitely start talking with our second-round pick about maybe trading that to get T. Higgins. Of course, provided he has a good relationship with Brian Callahan, kind of give him a familiar place in a new place. And then also with the left tackle / right tackle, Jonah Williams, who I think, would allow you to have him come in. I think he's kind of a solid starter, not a spectacular guy, but you can get him to play left. If you end up getting Joe Alt, you can move him over to right. They're kind of eager to know what you think about, maybe getting a head coach to kind of bring 3 more people or 3 more players along with him. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kinston.
Yeah, Kinston, what's up, man? I like that concept. The buy one, get a few free. That's definitely a good concept there. And I think, you look at T. Higgins, that was one of the examples that Brian Callahan gave when he talked about just having tendencies and adjusting off of them, the slot fade and doing things off of that. I just don't think T. Higgins is going to be able to leave the Bengals. I think they do tag him, and I don't give up a first-round pick or whatever the compensation would be to get him and sign him to that deal. But that does lead me to another receiver, and that's Tyler Boyd, who I think could come in and really help this team a lot and be, somebody that could be the 1B to Hopkins and, just in front of Treylon Burks and give another example to Burks on how to be a pro. So you do have that. Jonah Williams is very intriguing. I'm not sure what the money would cost to bring him, but
doesn't he kind of suck?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's not. It's not something that I would write home about and say, hey, you know what, Jonah Williams championship. I'm not saying that at all. You know what I mean? But this is a team that needs better players along the offensive line.
Oh, sure. No. He doesn't suck bad enough to be here.
Right. So that being said, depending upon the deal that you could bring him, hey, it would be an upgrade. But for me, the free is buy one, get 2 free. You get Tyler Boyd, and I think Dan Pitcher, I think he's going to probably become the OC, right, if Callahan leaves. But you could bring Troy Walters over as your receiver coach, okay? And that's I personally, if I'm the next coach, I'm keeping Rob Moore. But if you decide to do otherwise, you could bring Troy Walters over, and that's somebody who already knows your scheme. Maybe tag his role with a pass game analyst part of it, so it's like it is an upgrade for him, like a promotion, and have him coach the receivers, already well-versed in the scheme. They worked together for 3 years.
Texture says, TD, where do you think Arthur Smith ends up, either as a head coach or an OC, or do you think he sits one out?
Yeah, I mean, he could very well. If you're Mike Vrabel, and I know they're close, right? So if you're Mike Vrabel and you're getting one of these jobs, what do? You bring Arthur, like, we know the buddy system, right? Like,
but would he bring him over Tim Kelly?
I don't know. That's something that you got to ask Mike Vrabel. But I think a tie could definitely be made. You could always have Tim Kelly in a different role or Arthur. I think he ends up with Mike Vrabel.
I just hate the fact. I don't totally understand what went down in Atlanta. I didn't watch him. I didn't cover him. It might be as bad as Ritter was just awful and he didn't see it coming. But I didn't expect him to be as bad as as mediocre as he was in Atlanta.
A lot of talent there with that Falcons team.
I was shocked
but not
by
at
that.
the quarterback position.
Texture says, TD, what do you think about Mike McDonald? I know everybody wants an offensive head coach, but it sounds like if there is a guru on the defensive side of the ball, it is Mike McDonald of the Ravens.
Yeah, Mike McDonald is a really good coach. However, I would say this, that Ravens defense took a huge step forward this year with the addition of who? Chuck Smith, the pass rush specialist. I told you before, Jared, your favorite player, Jadeveon Clowney, set a career high with 9.5 sacks. Kyle Van Noy, who has been playing since 78, I think it was when he came into the league.
Yeah.
He jokingly, career high, 9 sacks. You got Adolphe Alway. You got There's a few pass rushers there.
How about Matabikwe going from decent to freaking unstoppable?
Well, that's not on Chuck Smith. Mm-hmm. So right now I'm focusing on the outside backers who have done really well, and I think that's a big part of that pass rush that they're able to get. And obviously Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen as well. But you look at the success that they've had. There's a lot of really good players on that team. Like there's first or second team All-Pros in every level of the defense. So that definitely factors in. So I'm not taking anything away from Mike McDonald at all. But I just think, it's going to be interesting the success that he's having. He can't bring those players here. You know what I mean? So I'm just curious how that would work.
Texter says, TD, when you watch the film, how much do you see Bobby Slowick getting Houston's receivers schemed open compared to Stroud making excellent throws or receivers making excellent catches? And the same could be said for Ben Johnson with Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown and those receivers that could not play for Mike Vrabel. How much of that is the coordinator scheming those guys open, and how much of it is those are really good players making good plays?
Yeah, I think you look at Slowick, and that's the whole thing that we talked about earlier, right, as far as the players versus the scheme. I think there's a good sequence to his play calling, the ability to take the deep shots. What I think he does is he accentuates what C.J. Stroud does really well, right, and that's the main thing there. I don't know about, scheming guys to get just completely wide open, whereas sometimes it's just guys like you look at Nico Collins, they call a little smoke route, and he catches that and takes that to the end zone. And I don't know that that's, a play calling thing as much as dang, he caught that ball and he put it in gear and he was gone. So it's a combination of the two. Now, Ben Johnson, I will give Ben Johnson more credit for what he's done because he's been able to, again, marry that scheme and rejuvenate Jared Goff. And you look at, just setting it up to where, Jared Goff, look at what they do with Amon-Ra St. Brown in the slot, right? How many times they give him the choice routes and the freedom that they give and the ability to get he and Goff on the same page from that slot position. I mean, that's a lot of their offense. But then you have the well-timed play-action passes, deep to whether it's Khalif Raymond or Josh Reynolds. You have that, and you look at Sam Laporta, what they've done with him. So I think it's a match of all that, to be honest with you. So
I do have a thought on Ben Johnson, though, that I'm actually glad that you're here for as opposed to just me saying it, which is it's crazy. I see similarities between him and Arthur Smith, right? Arthur Smith took a quarterback in Tannehill who, Goff was no bum, but Jared Goff was – he wasn't considered a high-end quarterback, kind of kicked out of L.A. Tannehill kicked out of Miami. And, yes, I mean, the Lions have good players. Laporta is good, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is good, and they have good players. Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown are good players. But, I mean, Khalif Raymond was good under Arthur and is good under Ben Johnson. And I think Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith played their best under Arthur Smith. And then Arthur goes out to Atlanta, and for whatever reason, it doesn't work out. I'm still shocked by it, and that gives me just a little bit of reservation when it comes to Ben Johnson.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, that's the thing about Callahan. I don't see any reason for reservation with him, but you can have reservation about pretty much every other candidate. You follow me? So you're right there. No, I get it. I just think that I think Ben Johnson. I'm just. The $15 million is the thing that would bother me if I was an owner. It's $15 million, that's a lot of money.
His agent came out and said that wasn't true.
Right.
But my guess is his agent's the one who told Josina Anderson that, and then his agent was, oh no, that's not true. When everyone was like, what?
Yeah, it's
$15 million. Austin from Clarksville says, TD, what about Dave Canales, the offensive coordinator of the Bucs? Why is he not getting any interest from anybody?
Good name, and that is something. Well, he interviewed for a job. I think it was Carolina. He set the interview or has. What he's done in Tampa, with Buck. Man, let me get this together. In Tampa with Baker Mayfield has been really impressive. So you do have to give him credit for that. I don't know why he's not getting any more interview requests, but I think he's probably one of those guys who will be in the next cycle, with some of these other candidates now, but he'll be in the next cycle for the next group of jobs next season.
TD, your insight is always valued on this program. You make some great points. I still love Bobby Slowick, but I still love you too. Great stuff.
Listen, much love to you as well. Definitely talking with TD. We got Diana Rossini on. Really good segment also. Run TMC with Chris Sanders. And I don't know if you folks peeped the hat, but the Tennessee Smokies, you like the hat, go see my guys over there at Fat Caps on Bell Road in Antioch, man.
There you go. TD, as always, great stuff, TD.
Peace.
Yep. Speaking of Bobby Slowick, there is one team that I'm starting to get very worried about when it comes to Bobby Slowick. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 the Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. So TD has made his case for Brian Callahan, and it is a very strong one. And there are other coaches that are out there. Ben Johnson is out there. You heard in Ian's update, Vrabel is interviewing with the Chargers, which I actually think is a good thing. If Vrabel gets one of these jobs, Chargers, Falcons, Seahawks, preferably the Seahawks, because I think Harbaugh's getting the Chargers and I think Bill's getting the Falcons. So if he can get that Seahawks job, cross a team off the list. Now there's one guy I want, and that's Bobby Slowick. You know that. I know that. I've been talking about Bobby Slowick since November. I'm the guy who is telling people, yeah, you know that really, really famous band that's now popping? I liked them before everybody else did. That's me. I want Bobby Slowick. I feel like Jerry Jones without the money and the party bus and the pictures with the women. I feel like Jerry Jones. I want him. And there's one team that I look at that I am scared to death of, and that's the Commanders. The Washington Commanders. Charles Robinson was on Robbie and Joe today, and he talked about how the Titans, they talked to 6 executives or coaches or whatever it is they talked to at Yahoo Sports. They talked to 6 of them, and they said rank the open jobs. And the Titans ranked 6th out of 7th. Carolina, obviously 7th. And one person voted for the Titans 7th. And as Charles Robinson put it, a lot of people are really fascinated by the Washington Commanders. And the Commanders are the team that scares me. Because I know, again, trying to think in my head, Bobby Slowick comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree, worked in San Francisco, knows Ran Carthon. So you would have to assume that he'd rather come here than to that dumpster fire in Carolina with that impulsive, entitled, rich owner that, you know, throws a temper tantrum and a meltdown every time they don't win a game. So I'm not worried about Carolina. I'm not worried about the Falcons because I think they're going Belichick. I'm not worried about the Chargers because I think they're going Harbaugh. I'm not worried about the Seahawks necessarily, though they are interested in Slowick, but I'm not really that worried about them because Geno Smith is their quarterback, and I think they're going to go with Dan Quinn. And so how many jobs are really out there in which the Titans would be contending for Bobby Slowick with another team? And Washington is the one I keep coming around to. Ben Johnson is supposedly the superstar candidate of this hiring cycle by saying no thank you to the jobs last year and having a great season this year. Everybody is talking about Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson winning with Jared Goff is more impressive than, say, Bobby Slowick, and I'm talking about to the average person, winning with a rookie quarterback because the rookie quarterback was taken second overall, so the rookie quarterback is supposed to be good. Jared Goff was fired in Los Angeles. The guru, Sean McVay, didn't want anything to do with Jared Goff. And Ben Johnson is in the divisional round of the playoffs with him. Ben Johnson is the superstar of this class. And as was once reported, and TD referenced this in the last hour, Ben Johnson wants superstar money. Guy hasn't coached a day in the NFL as a head coach, and he wants top of the market money. He's probably not going to Washington unless he changes his demands and his demand for power. Because Adam Peters, the general manager in Washington, like Ran Carthon, comes from San Francisco. However, Adam Peters was ahead on the pecking order in San Francisco of Ran Carthon. And last year, Adam Peters turned down the opportunity to interview for the Titans job. And I wondered at the time, why is Adam Peters turning down the Titans? And somebody said to me, well, maybe it's because they've promised him in San Francisco that when John Lynch steps aside, then they'll make him the GM, and so he just figures I'll go ahead and stay here. Or it was known to him that whoever takes that Tennessee job has to work with Mike Vrabel and has to defer in some instances to Mike Vrabel. And I don't think Adam Peters wanted that. No, I'm not interested. He takes the Washington job. The last thing that guy's going to do is hire a coach that he has to defer to, especially a rookie coach. So when it comes to Washington, take them out for all the big names. This guy's been waiting for his shot for forever. He's got his shot. The last thing he's going to do is hire somebody who swings a bigger stick than he does. No Harbaugh, no Belichick, no Vrabel, and probably no Ben Johnson. So now, where are you? And there's two things about Washington that I look at: Bobby Slowick, San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan, and I'm like, okay, the positives here, Rand Carthon and Will Levis. Hey, we got a young quarterback here for you to work with. We got a GM that you worked with in San Francisco. You guys will see eye to eye. But Peters might be viewed better than Rand. And that second overall pick, which might be Drake May, might be viewed better than Will Levis. And that would make the Commander's job even more intriguing. If the Commanders end up going with Ben Johnson, or they end up going with Mike McDonald, or they end up going with some of these other guys that are out there, then I think that opens the door wide open to the Titans having their choice of do they want Bobby Slowick or not. But I don't know if you can beat Washington if it goes head to head. And I don't know about you guys, but it hurts my heart to think that you may lose a heads-up competition with Washington. And I know Dan Snyder's not there anymore before you text in and say, the guy that made that place a literal toilet bowl for the last 25 years is gone. I know. But it's still Washington. It's still a depressing stadium with bad weather in a cutthroat, ruthless division with no quarterback. They haven't won in forever. We don't even know if this guy can handle owning a team like a normal person or if he's going to act like that freaking guy in Carolina. We don't know. And I still think head-to-head you lose with Washington. And I want Bobby Slowick. And in order to get Bobby Slowick, that's the one team I'm worried about. And it just pains me internally to think you can't beat Washington. And not asking it, but pretty much saying it like, I know that you can't beat Washington. And their GM didn't want to interview for your GM job, but he's willing to take their GM job. It's tough to accept. 615-737-1025. If not, then Bobby Slowick might be the guy. Then we might, I know TD likes Brian Callahan. I know Joe and he are talking about Thomas Brown. I know that's great. Oh, gosh, I'm just so into Bobby. Yes, Bobby Slowick. Give me the Pro Football Focus guy. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in here on our program, here on Stillman and Company. And there is maybe a little development that we will touch on. Plus, the one prediction that I think is absolutely redonkulous as far as both the Titans and Slowick are concerned. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Let's talk about Window Nation. That's right. Guess what? I've pretty much been stuck in my house for the last 4 days. Ventured out a little here and there, got to do the radio show. But other than that, just freaking hunkered down, just stuck, bang, bang, bang. But guess what? Even though it's frigidly cold outside, it's not inside because I got Window Nation. That's right, windownation.com. I've got great windows, and I've tested them thanks to my friends at Window Nation. So I know, hey, if a cold draft comes in here, I know to call Window Nation, get them out there and replace these windows. And while I think of windows or anything else breaking, I'm like, oh, no, that's going to cost me an arm and a leg. Here's the thing. With Window Nation, it's more affordable than you think. No interest for 5 years and 50% off all window styles. That's right. So if that cold air is coming into your home and you are jacking up your heating costs, your energy costs, guess what? You can fix that by calling Window Nation. Again, no interest for 5 years, 50% off all window styles. Do not wait. Simply call 866-90-NATION. That's 866-90-NATION, or visit windownation.com. How much of Stroud's success is coaching and how much of Stroud's success is Stroud?
I think there's a good combination of both. Stroud, with his arm talent and with his demeanor, lends himself to good coaching. I mean, a coach knows that if he can put him in the right spot, he'll deliver the ball not only to the right place, but at the right time. He's got the accuracy to put the ball where the offensive coordinator or the quarterback's coach wants him to put it. So they know that, and that's the start of it, right? And then when it comes to the coach helping him beyond that at both places, Ohio State and Houston, the play calling helped him with scheming open receivers. I mean, at Ohio State, Ryan Day schemed for him in ways that were just flat out unfair. And Coach Slowick in Houston does the same thing. It's not all scheming to make it easy, but at the same time, there's enough scheming to make it easy that they can continue to move the chains and he can continue to grow not just confidence in his game, but his teammates can grow in their confidence in him.
There you go. That was Trevor. And Trevor was talking about, look, C.J. Stroud had great coaching in Ohio State, and he's got great coaching in Houston. And I will take that. And the things they ask him to do, he can do because apparently he's pretty good. Now, Ben Johnson today had his press conference. The Titans requested permission for Ben Johnson, but I don't know if Ben Johnson is interested in the Titans. Not that I'm that interested in Ben Johnson, because this is going to sound crazy, but I've got Arthur Smith vibes, right? And I like Arthur, but Arthur turned around Ryan Tannehill. Johnson turned around Jared Goff. I'm just saying. But apparently Ben Johnson was talking to the media today during his press conference, and Ian Rappaport says that he will speak to the Panthers and the Commanders tomorrow about their head coaching vacancies, and the Chargers and Seahawks on Saturday. What about the Titans? So maybe he's not talking to the Titans. But again, if he goes to the Commanders, great. If Ben Johnson doesn't go to the Commanders, then I'm worried about Bobby Slowick. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. If you want to weigh in here on our program, one texter into the text line says, Jared, did you see the pre-draft reports from last year about how Slowick wanted Will Levis? Because Levis was the highest rated Pro Football Focus quarterback. I wonder if Slowick is the guy in Houston who wanted Levis. Now, that was Dan Graziano, who came out and said that there were people in Houston's building that preferred Levis to C.J. Stroud. And I said, I hope that that's Bobby Slowick that was, preferential to Levis. That being said, I cannot trust anything about what was said pre-draft about, this guy really likes him, because if Bobby Slowick did really, really like Will Levis, the last thing Bobby Slowick is going to tell anybody is that he really, really likes Will Levis. Remember, the Colts were just freaking in love with Will Levis. And I'm like, yeah, they got to take Anthony Richardson. And everybody was like, what? But ESPN reports every day how much they like him. I know. And I would do that too. ESPN is reporting what they've been told. But what they've been told is not the truth. Because if I loved the other guy, I would tell you how much I love the guy I didn't want to take. That being said, Bobby Slowick is a PFF guy. He helped apparently form their grading system. He is the PFF coach. As much as I hate Pro Football Focus, and I do, he is the PFF coach. I'll take the PFF coach. By the way, I was thinking about this. If we're at the Super Bowl this year, and we're doing all these shows, we may not know who the Titans coach is when we're at the Super Bowl, which would make for a wild Super Bowl experience, trying to figure out what the Titans are going to do. Texter into the text line says that Bobby Slowick seems a little stale. I'm concerned that he doesn't have the energy and the presence of a head coach. How could you possibly know that? Guy does a couple interviews, does an interview a week. How do you know the energy of a head coach? Again, I thought Arthur, and I, covered him. I thought Arthur was going to be great. Not so much. Christopher is up next here on Stillman and Company. Thank you for waiting. What's up, Christopher?
Yeah, hey, Jared. You keep talking about the fact that Slowick and Rand Carthon knew each other from San Francisco, and that might be a reason for Bobby Slowick to want to come here. What if Slowick didn't like Rand Carthon? Anybody who's worked long enough has come across somebody who is just totally incompetent that nevertheless fails up to be in charge, and nobody wants to work with that guy. And that's who we've got as a GM. So just curious to your thoughts.
I am worried about that. Thank you for your call, Christopher. I cannot assume one or the other. But I will say this. Everybody tells me how great Rand Carthon's relationships in the NFL are. Rand is a relationship guy. That is like his number one thing. Well, if that is his reputation, then he needs to live up to it if Bobby Slowick is out there for him to get. And if Bobby Slowick doesn't want to come here, let's say Adam Peters ends up hiring Ben Johnson or whatever in Washington, and Bobby Slowick is choosing between you and Carolina, and he takes the Carolina job, that is absolutely a bad look on Rand Carthon. But I can't assume that that's true or not. And I will say this for Rand Carthon. If he's able to handle this correctly, then whoever the Titans end up hiring will look like their first choice. I don't know what was going through John Robinson's head when he fired Mike Mularkey after the divisional round of the playoffs and hired Mike Vrabel after the AFC Championship game. I don't know what was going through his head. I assume it was, I'm firing him because I'm going to go get him, which makes it look like it's his top choice. That's what it has to look like here. Whoever the Titans get, it has to look like their top choice and not they struck out on this guy and struck out on that guy, and so now here's Aaron Glenn. Nate is up next here on the program, has been waiting a while on Mike Vrabel. What's up, Nate?
Hey, how you doing, Jaron? Appreciate all the takes you have.
Thank you.
I did borrow your line. The cap is fake when I posted that to a message board for the Seahawks. Anyways, Peter King had a comment that Vrabel was likely or at the top of the list for the Seahawks. Could he succeed with the GM that is there now, John Snyder?
No.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you for your call, Nate. I do not see Vrabel having success in Seattle. The only thing that could save him, now they got receivers in Seattle, which is not nothing. But what could save him again is if Arthur Smith comes in and does to Geno Smith what he did to Tannehill. But if he's going to try and go in there and bring Todd Downing with him or Tim Kelly, and I like Tim Kelly fine, but I definitely don't think Tim Kelly's anything special. If he tries to do it the Vrabel way, it ain't going to work. Not in that division. Not against McVay, who he did outcoach one time that Sunday night football game. Not against McVay and against Shanahan and no, not going to happen. So, I mean, if he is a top target of the Seahawks, he's not what I would be looking for if I were the Seahawks. If I were the Seahawks, I would be looking for a quarterback guru coach. I would not be looking for a defensive guy. Because I had a defensive guy. Not that Pete's defense was very good, but I had a defensive guy. To try to do things the Vrabel way. Texter says, go watch some Ben Johnson interviews. He is not Arthur Smith. He would make a great coach. Because of his interviews with the press? Seriously? Like, I understand, like, I'm not one of these people that thinks that, who cares about press conferences? Because I do think that press conferences are somewhat important. I mean, this is you talking to the public. So it is important. In a state of turmoil, which the Titans looked like they were last week, to send Rand Carthon out there with I don't know, the ball didn't bounce our way, we had injuries, I don't know why we fired the coach, he and I were best buddies. That was a significant problem. But the idea of like what a coordinator acts like during the week, that doesn't, I mean, how am I supposed to look at that and say, oh yeah, this gotta be a good coach, this gotta be a bad coach? Now maybe. I mean, apparently that's what Sean McVay was. Sean McVay won them all the time. But I always kind of thought Matt LaFleur was a doofus around here, and he's doing okay for himself in Green Bay. I still think he's a doofus, by the way. Joe can't get it through his head how he could possibly be a doofus. Like, how could Matt LaFleur be a doofus? I don't know, because it was an 8-point game in the NFC title game, and he kicked a field goal with 2 minutes to go, or they gave Tom Brady the ball, and they never got it back. 615-737-1025. More of your phone, 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. Now, Mel Kiper Jr. has a take on the Titans, which we will get to. But speaking of hot takes, I do want to get to this because I feel like everybody's got this big take on what the Titans should do in the draft, including Mel. And yet we're leaving out the one thing the general manager actually told us could be a possibility. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
The O-line's the big problem field. Certainly a speed receiver is needed, but the offensive line has to be addressed. And that's where you hope, if you're the Titans, that either Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu are still there on the board. That, to me, is the biggest problem they have. You got a franchise young quarterback. You can't keep getting him beat up. Remember, Will had issues at Kentucky that final year with a bad offensive line. Comes to Tennessee with a horrible offensive line. Can you give this kid a break? Can you help him out and keep him healthy for the entire season? The O-line, to me, is the biggest problem for the Tennessee Titans.
Mel Kiper Jr., they're going over the top of the draft, and he's saying Joe Alt, the left tackle at Notre Dame, Fashanu, the left tackle at Penn State, those guys would be great choices for the Titans. Got to go left tackle. And everybody in Titanland seems to agree. It's just, we have to get Joe Alt, Jared. We have to get this. We have to get that. And I go back to the left tackle the Titans drafted with the 11th overall pick in last year's draft. And Rand Carthon was asked the big conundrum question that we kept wondering throughout the course of last year about, wait a minute. You've got no left tackle, and you've got an All-American left tackle who you've stuck at left guard. And Rand did not shoot down the idea of moving Skoronski to left tackle.
Why, when you drafted an All-America left tackle, did the organization never look at him at left tackle as you struggled at left tackle?
Well, I think the goal for Peter was to be the left guard, and moving him around, moving him from a new position to a position that he hadn't practiced. I don't think it was advantageous in his development, and his growth, because he was learning a new position. And from him, he came in, he was an All-American, left tackle in college, but I think, and we talked about this with Peter the other day, at this league, they're bigger, longer players, and, the length presents a problem. Now, moving forward, who knows? We may give Peter a look. Peter is a player that I would never bet against and say that he couldn't do something or he couldn't play. But we thought at the time when we drafted him that we could put Peter at guard and he'll be a mainstay.
Okay, so the Titans told you that they used the 11th overall pick on a guard. Dumb, which we already knew. The second thing is, Rand leaves the door open to, I wouldn't bet against Peter no matter what, at left tackle, because he said that's something we'll consider. Now, when they drafted him, they went to the microphones right after they drafted him, and they said, he's going to play offensive line. We'll decide where he's going to play later, and then they never practiced him one rep at left tackle. And this is the incompetence that I keep telling you about with the Tennessee Titans that drives me crazy, and it comes a lot of the time. It's coming from that guy, Rand Carthon. Let's, again, go back to the very beginning on the Skoronski front. Titans used the 11th overall pick on a guard. Bad idea. The guard is not worth the 11th overall pick. Neither is a punter, neither is a kicker. A receiver? Yes. An inside backer? No. So the Titans use the 11th overall pick on a guard. That's dumb. Then they lie about using the 11th overall pick on a guard, because the Titans are just immune from being able to ever just tell the truth, right? It's like they fire Mike Vrabel after they lied about it, 6 weeks before they said, we're not going to fire Mike Vrabel. Then they fired Mike Vrabel. Then they sit down with their team play-by-play guy, and it's like, yeah, we just felt it was time. Can you tell us why? No. So the Titans lied when they drafted Skoronski about giving him a chance at left tackle. Then they go into training camp with Andre Dillard as their left tackle. By about day 3 of training camp, it was obvious Andre Dillard was having serious problems. Now, Mike Vrabel said at the time, that's Arden Key out there, so of course he's going to have problems out there, as if Arden Key is supposed to be some kind of superstar like Jeffrey Simmons, that it's, okay, that's why he's Calvin Johnson making all those catches. Wrong again. Arden Key is an average defensive end that can only play in pass rush downs. Any legitimate left tackle should be able to stop him occasionally in training camp with no pads on. So right there, that's the moment. Move Skoronski to left tackle. Let's see. They didn't. In fact, they thought Dillard could go man for man with Myles Garrett, which I still don't understand. Then finally, after about 6 weeks of seeing the same thing that we all saw through the first 3 days of training camp. The Titans decided, okay, let's try something else. They put Nicholas Petit Ferrer Ian, a.k.a.
PT.
They put PT at left tackle. Then PT got hurt. So then Dillard had to go back in at left tackle. They traded away Kevin Byard. They gave up on the season. The season is over. They've got a rookie quarterback in there. They got terrible left tackles. And their options are stay with Dillard, move Peter over, see if Peter can play left tackle, or Jalen Duncan. And what'd they choose? Jalen Duncan. Why? I don't know. So right then and there, they could have put Skoronski at left tackle and said, okay, we got about 6 games left. Let's put him at left tackle. Let's see if he can play left tackle. No. We're not doing that. So now Peter's playing left guard. So he doesn't practice at left tackle, even though it's obvious that they don't have a left tackle. And they don't play him at left tackle, even though it's obvious that the guys they do have at left tackle aren't any good. So now they had all those games to give Skoronski a tryout at left tackle. They didn't do it. So now they're saying, we might move Peter to left tackle. I wouldn't count Peter out, Rand Carthon says. If you're sitting there with the 7th overall pick, and I'm just going to be honest with you guys, wide receivers are more important than left tackles. Now, not by a lot, but they are. The Cincinnati Bengals went through this when they took Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell. They said receiver is more important than tackle, and it is. So with the 7th overall pick, it's going to go quarterback, and then there's going to be, 3 more picks before you. There are 3 receivers, Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, and Malik Neighbors. All 3 of them, I think, are, again, I can't tell you who's going to be good in the NFL and who's not, but all 3 of them right now project to be freaking stud receivers. Like, I'm talking Jamar Chase level good. Number 1 guys. And now I have to pass on it to take a tackle because I didn't see if my left tackle that I drafted last year could play left tackle at any point in the season. Because I didn't think it was going to be good for the guard's development. That is the incompetence that I keep talking about from the Titans. They drafted a position that you don't draft with the 11th overall pick. They lied about it when they didn't need to lie about it. They wouldn't give it a chance when they had the opportunity to do so. And now they sit here today when they're on the clock with the 7th overall pick. And I don't think Harrison Jr. is going to be there. But again, if it goes quarterback, I mean, there is a legitimate chance that Harrison could be there. So you're on the clock. And I have to take a tackle now? What if the guard can't play tackle? Rashawn Slater, who played at the same school, has the same length of arms. He is a starting left tackle for the Chargers. So I could have tried him out at left tackle last year, but I didn't. And now I'm going into the draft, and when I'm sitting there with that pick at 7, can I assume that Peter can play left tackle? There's not going to be 1 rep between now and then that will tell me if Peter can play left tackle. You see the incompetence that I keep talking about? This is the stuff that drives me freaking bananas. Is now I have to take a tackle when maybe I have a tackle who I didn't let play tackle last year. Go sign a guard in free agency. Go draft one in the 4th round. That's where you get guards. I don't care. Nope. I got to pass on Rome Odunze so I can get a tackle. I got to pass on Malik Neighbors so I can go get a tackle. Just unbelievable. Texter says, receiver is not more important than tackle. The Bengals have Joe Burrow, which masks their blocking issues, and he's had season-ending injuries twice. Check out the Lions' offensive line right now and get back to me. Penei Sewell is a big part of that. Yeah, let's see the Lions get to the Super Bowl, and they might. I don't think they will, but they might. Left tackle's not important. It's not as important as receiver. It's just not. Receiver is more important. Tackle's up there, but oh, goodness gracious. Oh, goodness gracious. Texter says, everyone said the Bengals had to go offensive line after Joe Burrow's rookie year, and they went pure talent with Jamar Chase. That's what the Titans need to do, not just pick a position because they need to. Right, but no picking at all. Non-premium positions with that 7th pick.
Well, that Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow thing was unique, was it not?
I thought Jamar Chase was the best player in the country when he was a sophomore.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it's not just, hey, we're taking a really great wide receiver here. We're taking a really great wide receiver who has already built in very good chemistry with our quarterback.
Yeah, but I mean, again,
so
I think Chase would be really good if Tannehill was his quarterback.
Probably so, but there's a next level with Joe Burrow. And that's, there's not a wide receiver like that here with the Titans. So it's not complete apples to apples.
But see, there's not a wide receiver right now here that's as good as Jamar Chase.
True.
Like, they need that. They need that guy. And I will tell you, I think all three of them, and I'm not like,
but that's
I'm not
just
as in love
one,
with Marvin Harrison as everybody else.
But that's probably why, since he took, like, if it wasn't Jamar Chase, would they have taken a different wide receiver?
I mean, if they just took a wide receiver because he went to college with Joe Burrow, that is a hot take.
Well, I'm just saying that has to have played a part.
My guess is Chase had a better grade than Sewell, and that's why they took Chase. If Sewell had a better grade, I think they would have taken the tackle.
Yeah, maybe.
But again, like, I mean, one texter says the issue with the tackle is all on Vrabel. I mean, Vrabel's interviewing for the Chargers job where Rashawn Slater has the exact same measurables as Skoronski. So is he going to move Slater to guard? Now introducing our next head coach of the LA Chargers, Mike Vrabel.
I do wonder when Carthon says, I wouldn't put it past Peter to do anything. It's like, well, you kind of already put it past him to play tackle because you didn't try him this year, right?
I mean,
it kind of felt that way.
That's why, again, I say it's incompetence because it doesn't add up. Everything he says. It's like every time he says something in that moment, it's like, oh, okay. Maybe they will try Peter there. Okay, well, how are they going to know before they have to make that decision of free agency in the draft? They're not. So it's like, well, that's great, but like, it's not actually practical, which is just unbelievable to me. And what's hilarious is Rand had that horrible press conference, and everybody knew it, and now people are like pretending like that press conference wasn't horrible. I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, get out of it. Texter into the text line says, I just moved here from Vegas. Therefore, I am comfortable being a Titans fan because I am used to mediocrity or worse. Vegas teams are pretty good. The Golden Knights just started a couple years ago. They win every year. Nah, the Raiders suck. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Okay, quick Titans breather here. Vandy basketball got smoked last night by Auburn. Was not ever close. 7,000 people went to the game, they say. And I'm not sure that it could get any worse than the fact that I don't know how many people actually care. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game.
We ran into a really hot team. This team been playing really well. I thought the first half, we started the game pretty good. We were able to see the ball go through the basket a little bit, and that's what you have to do. You have to score against this team so you can get back and get set. I thought we did that for a while. Then we went to the bench, and then we kind of hit a big lull. I think we had a stretch of about 10 minutes where we only scored 4 points, and they were able to get some separation from us there. And we never really had a little bit of a push in the second half, but never really threatened. I mean, I think they got comfortable. They kind of pounded us on the inside. Williams had an unbelievable game. It's nothing. Again, saw him watching him. Scouting his team 2 games ago. He was 9 for 9, so it's not a fluke. He's as good as advertised. Broom, I thought he was a real presence down there. It's a tough way to win a game when half of their misses that they got back on the offensive board. So we got to, again, I talked about it before the game, trying to get a little bit more physicality, making sure that we go and hit, keep them off their offensive boards, and we weren't able to get that accomplished tonight.
That was Jerry Stackhouse. By the way, Auburn went on a 20-2 run last night in the first half. Pretty much ended any chance they had of winning the game. Now, here's what's crazy. Vandy basketball is terrible. I mean, they are 5-12 and they are 0-4 in the SEC. Now, I don't blame the people at Vandy for how bad it is right now. This was a Malcolm Turner decision to fire Bryce Drew, who I think is a good coach, fire Bryce Drew, and then hire Jerry Stackhouse, who was not qualified for a head college job in the SEC. He was a G League coach. Again, he would have been qualified for an NBA job, but he would have been qualified for a college job. And so Jerry Stackhouse has been here at Vanderbilt. He's done largely nothing, and it's awful. But it's worse than just they're bad. 8 years ago, when I was doing a solo show by myself before Jared and the GM started, I would rail on Kevin Stallings because I was sick and tired of his mediocrity at Vanderbilt. It was time for him to go. He was the Jeff Fisher of Vandy basketball. And I'd rail on Kevin Stallings, and we'd get so many calls, and people would be mad, and it'd be this, and it'd be... And I don't think that exists anymore. The mad. It's bad. And what's worse is nobody cares. I mean, a couple weeks ago, Tyron Lawrence, the point guard, came out, or one of the forwards came out, and he said, I believe it was him, and he said something along the lines of, it's disappointing that our fans weren't here at our game. And it's like, dude, the fans don't owe you anything. That's not how this works. But what really, shocked me about that is if a player comes out and gets mad at the fans, that is, A1 talk radio, go to it. People call in. I'll tell you what, I'm so mad at those people. I pay their salary by going to the game, and I don't think anybody even noticed. Because that's what's happening with Vandy basketball. Vandy football has its disadvantages. It is what it is. Vandy basketball has been competitive in the past and should be competitive today. Vandy women's basketball is competitive, and they won a game today, and they're having a great season. So this is a massive problem for Vanderbilt, and they've got to look in the mirror, and they've got to say, what can we do now? I'm not saying they have to fire Jerry Stackhouse today, and I feel very confident, though I have not talked to anybody, so I don't have any sourcing on this, that Jerry Stackhouse will be fired at the end of the year, as he should be. But what really bothers me about this is that I don't think Vanderbilt understands where they sit today. Like, they have got to get it right if they want to be relevant in this town at all. And look, we're partners with Vandy, and I like Vandy, and I like Candace Lee, and I hope Vandy likes me, but somebody's got to tell them. And so it's going to be me today that says Memorial Gym should not be the ghost town that it is right now. And I am convinced, because I've seen it, that people in this town will show up for good SEC basketball. And that's what we should have. Auburn is good. That should be an exciting game. 8 o'clock what was last Wednesday? 8 o'clock on a Wednesday, no hockey game. Yes. Well, let's watch some basketball. But Vandy's so bad it doesn't matter. I remember last year after the Super Bowl, Vandy basketball was good. Now, they were so bad at the beginning of the season that they didn't get in the NCAA tournament. But, I mean, that was fun to watch, even if you're a Vandy fan or not a Vandy fan. Like in Louisville, they're equally as bad. But at least they're mad about it. Like, because, again, basketball runs that state. And so they're mad about it. They're furious about it. They're going crazy about it. Here, it's like, nah. Somebody texted in and said, I'm a Nashville native. You could give me free tickets. Vandy could be number one in the nation, and I could care less. I'll tell you this right now. If Vanderbilt were the number one team in the country in college basketball, it would be massive here. And it'd be massive here for two reasons. Number one, it'd be massive because, again, this is an SEC town, and people appreciate good SEC sports. And number two, because the Tennessee fans would be so mad, oh my God. If Vanderbilt was number one in the country, it would be popping. You couldn't get a ticket for those games. And I know because I went to a Vandy basketball game when Vandy was good, and they played Tennessee, who was number one in the country, and you could not get a ticket. Now it's like outside of Kentucky, it's like, hey, who needs 19 tickets? This is not good. Like Vandy basketball is better than this. Again, Vandy football, it is what it is. Hope for the best, but Vandy basketball has a much better tradition than this. Vandy basketball should be much better than this. And there are two people, in my opinion, that should be held responsible. Number one, Malcolm Turner, the old athletic director who was incompetent, and it was a disastrous year that he was in charge. And number two, Joe Rexrode. You want to know why, Ian?
Why is that?
Because that's his coach. He has stumped for Jerry Stackhouse. So Joey Stacks has to own this one. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So I saw something on YouTube yesterday, Titans related, that it set me off. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.2 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios here on our program. So I have become a big YouTube watcher. I pay for YouTube Premium, no ads, whatever it is, all the extra stuff I get. I'm on YouTube so much, just, looking at press conferences and then highlights and then this and that and whatever. And I've really gotten into YouTube. I know, it sounds crazy. Sounds like a take from 2013. I've always been somebody that's watched YouTube, but now I've really gotten more into it. So when I get bored, I just go to YouTube. The other day, and this will give you some insight about what my life is like when football season is over, like right now when there are not football games on, or, hockey doesn't come on until 9 o'clock tonight, or basketball is terrible like it was yesterday, and it came on late. I watched the other day when it snowed a YouTube video, which was 17 minutes of a guy going to Costco and going through like all the different ingredients in like the quote unquote health food at Costco and like what's actually healthy for you and what's not. So that's how into YouTube I've gotten lately. So I was just perusing YouTube yesterday and I saw a video, like a Titans themed video. And it was basically Ran Carthon, great year one. He fleeced Kevin Byard, or the Eagles for Kevin Byard. He was great in the draft. He had a great year. This was a great year. A great year for Ran Carthon. I thought, wait a minute. What? A great year? Now, let me say this. I understand that a lot of you want to be optimistic. This is your team. You want to root for them. I get it. That's your business. I root for them too. And so if it's glass half full, you'll take it. And if you want to do that with Ran Carthon, you can. Everything wasn't bad this past year. I like Levis. And so I like the pick of Levis. But he's not a franchise quarterback. He is at least not one yet. You can't say he hit it out of the park. The Titans have the 7th overall pick. Jaden Daniels might be there with that 7th overall pick. But the Titans would not use that pick on Jaden Daniels because they've got a quarterback. They used a 2nd-round pick on him, and if he doesn't work out, Ran Carthon's probably going to get fired. But we don't know that he's going to work out yet. So we can't sit there and jump up and down about it. The Texans can do that with C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. You can't do that with Levis. Spears has potential as this year, good 3rd down back. I think they can use him in a better offense, probably differently than the Titans did. And Hopkins was a good value signing when they got it, and boy, did they need it. But outside of that, what about this past season was great? And this is the stuff that drives me nuts, is when people just want to believe a narrative that is absolutely not true. Now, is Ran Carthon a terrible general manager? I have my worries. But you can, decide for yourself and say, hey, 1 year's too early to tell. You can do that. But you can't gaslight yourself into believing that Ran Carthon had a good year. The offensive line was an unmitigated disaster. Left tackle in free agency, terrible. Center in free agency, terrible. Right guard, not good enough. Whatever you want to call their year at right tackle, it ended up with Dylan Radence being the primary starter at right tackle, and that's never a good sign. Skoronski, meanwhile, I think he had a bad rookie season. You guys can take your excuses, do whatever you want with it. But again, it's hard to argue that that was a great pick because a guard with the 11th overall pick is dumb, and you all know that. You all know it. The secondary was 32nd in the league. They added Sean Murphy-Bunting. Did it make the secondary better? They acquired a bag of footballs for Kevin Byard. Woo! We showed the Eagles. Yeah, that 5th and 6th round pick they won't even miss. And so I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings. Because the Titans are further away from contention today than they were this time last year. But a lot of you, it's one thing to sit there and say, hey, It's too early to say, that Rand's going to be a bad general manager. Let's see what happens. Let's let him hire the coach. He's got the 7th pick. The owner's talking about cap space, which means she's going to spend money. Let's see and then decide. You can totally feel that way. But that's different than, wow, great first year for Rand Carthon. And that's the stuff that I can't take. Because that's just not true. In fact, let's compare this with John Robinson, a general manager who absolutely had his faults and who most of you think was a no-good bum. Which isn't true, but that's, again, what some of you want to believe. In John Robinson's first year, and again, this is just taking this off the premise of this YouTube video that was like, what a year for Rand Carthon. In John Robinson's first year, he improved the team's win total by 200%. They won 3 games in 2016. They won 9 games in 2015, they won 9 games in 2016. The Titans won one less game in Rand Carthon's first year. He drafted all pros in each of the first 3 rounds, including Jack Conklin, who was an all-pro as a rookie. He fixed the offensive line with the additions of Ben Jones, Josh Klein, Jack Conklin, and swung a Dorial Green Beckham, who was ultimately a bust trade for Dennis Kelly. And when they came out of that first year with the improved win total, they also had the Rams' 5th overall pick, which they swindled them out of in the deal for Jared Goff. I'd say that is a good first year as a general manager. Not the, let's hope and see what happens. That's, let's hope and see what happens. This is good or bad. Did you win any more games? Nope. Do you have anything solved right now? Nope. So what good did he do? A market contract for Jeffrey Simmons? A below market contract for DeAndre Hopkins? That's good. Levis, we'll see. Spears, I think there's something there. But everything else, there's nothing great that happened. That doesn't mean that something great can't happen this upcoming season. But for you to sit there and put out videos and say, oh yes, Rand Carthon's first year, it was incredible. No, it wasn't. By no metric, by no argument can you make it out to be a good first year. So what drives me nuts is this idea that we just want to pretend that what happened last year didn't happen. It happened. And while it makes boo-hoo Titans Twitter all bent out of shape, we do have to live in a world that at least reflects a little bit of what's actually going on. We have to admit it. And the further away we get from the games, the stronger the narratives become. Where it's like, oh no, it'll be better this year because this. But we cannot forget about where this team really is right now. And if we want to argue about how they got there, that's one thing. But a good general manager, like the way that I would say good job for a general manager are tangible results. Again, like improving your win total by 200%, by drafting all pros. That is a tangible receipt of good GMing. We think Peter can be a good guard. That's not success. So, you guys can believe whatever you want to believe. I believe what I believe, and I hope I'm wrong. Because again, I root for the Titans. And so if the Titans end up winning the Super Bowl and Rand Carthon stands up there with the trophy in his hands and they say, congratulations, Terry Bradshaw's out there. Congratulations, Rand Carthon, on winning Super Bowl. And he says, I just want to say, screw Jared Stillman. I got no problem with that. And I think there's a chance, albeit not a very good one, that I could be wrong about this, about whether or not he'll be good or bad. But there's no way you can argue to me last year was a good year for a general manager. No way, no how. There can be excuses and they can be valid, but you can't say it was good. And that's what triggers me. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get to your phones on that. 615-737-1025. Plus, a report today about the Titans and where they stand in terms of the rest of the league and how other people inside the league view them. It is not nothing. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
We reached out to 6 like a mix of coaches and executives, and we asked them to rank the 7 openings. So we said, look, we're going to do it on a point system, 1 to 7, add it up and give us sort of your reasonings why. The Titans finished 6th. And let's see, 1 5th-place vote, 4 6th-place votes. And someone voted them 7th, like worse than Carolina. And I was stunned when we talked to people just how damaging the Vrabel firing was. It was remarkable to me, just some of the negativity that surrounds looking at that Tennessee job.
There you go. That was Charles Robinson on Robbie and Joe this morning. And I got to tell you, that's bad news. That's embarrassing. When somebody hears news that they don't like, there are 2 options. There is one, accept the news and then go from there. And the other is to blame the person telling you the news, right? You get called into the doctor's office. Doctor tells you have cancer. You have 2 choices. Okay, doc, what do we do now? Or 2, I don't agree, doctor. Which one do you think is, I don't know, a better course of action? So Charles Robinson and his cronies at Yahoo Sports, they asked those executives and said, okay, and coaches and said, all right, rank these open jobs. And the Titans were 6 out of 7. Carolina was 7th. And one person says the Titans job is worse than Carolina's. There are, again, 2 choices here. We can either be mad at those executives don't know what they're talking about. Oh, Yahoo Sports, Charles Robinson, they don't know what they're talking about. Or we can address reality, which is the rest of the league thinks the Titans are a crap show. And I think the Titans have 2 choices to get back on the right track. 1, hit an absolute grand slam with this hire. The Rams were a disaster. Between the move to L.A., Jeff Fisher, Eric Dickerson, maybe Jared Goff was a bust. They hired Sean McVay, and it was like the cure-all of all of their problems. The Texans were a freaking dumpster fire. And then all of a sudden, they brought in DeMeco Ryans, and on they go. Hit this one out of the park, pick the next great guy, and we'll forget about all of the problems with ownership or management or the GM or all of it. The second, which is not dependent on pure luck, which hitting the coaching hire completely out of the park is somewhat based on luck. It's kind of like the draft. You have to be in position to be able to get that guy. That guy has to be available, and then you have to be able to scout it and decide it. The second option is that Amy Adams Strunk has to be more transparent. When she does a video with Mike Keith and won't talk about how she runs her franchise, it looks like she's hiding something. Now, if she wants to delegate that responsibility to somebody else, and all of a sudden now it's the team CEO who's the one that is doing the press conferences to talk about the vision and why they fired Vrabel and why it wasn't a good idea and what their reasoning was, that's fine. But you got to work with me here. You got to give me some transparency here. She's got to stand up and be accountable for her franchise, because the reputation, the idea that these executives are saying, oh, no, we'd rather be in Carolina than with the Titans, that's not about me. That's not about you. That's not about our city. That's not about the division. That's probably not even really about the GM. It's about the owner. That's what that is. That's where they're saying, oh, I mean, Mike Vrabel couldn't cut it there. Oof, I don't know about that. The Titans have to get their reputation and need to start handling their business back to the same place it was when they brought back Steve Underwood and they brought in John Robinson and Mike Mularkey. Now, I'm not saying they need to bring in John Robinson and Mike Mularkey, because I don't think they do. But they need to get back to where they were then, which was basically this mea culpa of, hey, I know the last couple of years have been a gong show of epic proportion around here, but we're going to get this right, and we're going to do this like a football team. Is everybody okay with that? Instead of, well, we made this move because we felt like it, and now we're going to do this, and trust me, it's going to work. Oh, no. No more of that. Get it straight. Get it figured out. Say, okay, here we go. We're sorry that we blew it like this. We're sorry that we changed directions. We just decided this is why we need to do what we need to do. And it's okay to say it. I know they're afraid to throw Vrabel under the bus, and I know they're afraid to bash former employees, and I know, but sometimes if you're going to make a move, you got to explain why. It's not like it's going to hurt John Robinson's feelings any more to say why you fired him than it will hurt his feelings for you to fire him. And even then, while his feelings are important, and you shouldn't just throw the guy under the bus to throw the guy under the bus, at some point, if you're firing the guy and everybody has all these questions as to why you're doing it, you need to explain even if it does hurt his feelings. And then maybe people would understand the moves you make instead of what's really happening right now is the Titans do something on the surface that looks stupid. They either lie about it or they don't tell the truth. And then they get mad when everybody's like, that's stupid, or that doesn't make sense, or you're probably not telling the truth. And that's how you earn the reputation that they have. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. And if you don't think that reputation matters, come coaching time, these guys may be making choices saying, yeah, you know what? I'm not ready for a head coaching job. I'll stay here for a year. People will probably do that with the Panthers. I'm just telling you. Phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. If you want to weigh in here on the program, texter into the text line says when it comes to the Titans, they say, who is crying that Charles Robinson doesn't know what he's talking about? I haven't heard anyone saying that. Of course, the Titans' job isn't appealing. The roster stinks. They have very little draft capital. No, they don't. They have plenty of draft capital. They have a first-round pick, a second-round pick, a fourth-round pick, a fifth-round pick, a sixth-round pick, and like 6th, 7th-round picks. They have plenty of draft capital. I mean, they have 8 first-round picks, but they've got draft capital. Stop acting like they don't. And the GM is unproven and coming off of a rookie season, and the roster is going to get worse before it gets better. Why should we accept that? Why should we accept, hey, the roster is going to get worse before it gets better? I don't accept that. If I came out today and I said, hey, you're going to win 3 games next year, who would sign up for that? Texter says, the media is clueless about Vrabel. He's only gotten 1 interview since the firing, and that was upon interview. He deserved to get fired. They did explain it, Jared. Who do you think leaked that info to Joe and Diana that was reported? Somebody that Amy asked to leak it. Yeah, I mean, the leaking of the, oh yeah, I heard. See, here's why that doesn't count. Because when you leak something like that, like when you go to Joe and you tell Joe what happened, and then a source said, a high-level source said, what you're doing is you're purposely not putting your name to it so that then whenever somebody accuses you of being the one who said that, you can, I didn't say that. Happens all the time. Happens all the time. That's why going on the record is important. And the Titans are afraid of going on the record because they don't do it. And not only do they not do it, they run the GM out there who has to plead the fifth to every question because either he's not in authority to make the decision or because he doesn't want to answer it because he doesn't want to get in trouble. Again, like that Rand press conference on Tuesday, that was a freaking disaster. And the further we get away from it, the more people forget about it, which is fine. I mean, you do whatever you want. But the more we get away from it, the more people forget about it because it's like, oh, that wasn't really that bad. Oh, no, it was bad. Everybody was watching that. And everybody thought, oh, my God, these guys don't have a clue. Meanwhile, Mike Tomlin is in Pittsburgh doing a press conference in which he apologized for how he walked off the stage the other day, talked about how there was never any truth to the rumor that he was thinking about stepping away, saying that he's coming back next year. There's going to be competition for Kenny Pickett. I mean, Mike Tomlin answered every question today. Why? Because Tomlin's got a reputation for telling the truth. That's how the Steelers end up with that kind of reputation. One texter says, the Titans were not going to win with or without Kevin Byard. They moved on a year early and got a bag of footballs. I'd rather have a bag of footballs than not have anything. That's fine. My point is, don't sit there and say, oh, we fleeced the Eagles. Oh, we showed them. No. Fleecing is what the Eagles did to you for A.J. Brown. That's fleecing. Getting a bag of footballs for Byard and saying, well, we didn't miss Byard that much is one thing. We showed them. Those are two totally different things. Unbelievable. One texter says, I asked Joe this morning why the Panthers wouldn't be the front runner for Thomas Brown since that he's on their team right now as their OC. That is so true. Look, I love Joe. I love TD. But this pumping of the Panthers O-line or the Panthers OC is just ridiculous. They're 32nd in the league. And I know it's a gong show there, but that's not nothing. Like, that matters. One texter says, I'm not accepting that the roster is going to get worse. It's reality. Well, then be ready for another GM search next year. This year it's coach. Last year it was GM. This year it's coach. If you win 3 games this upcoming season, it'll be GM again. This is just a great cycle the Titans are on. And this is why it never ends. This is why I've said, hey, if this were me, I'd have cleaned house at the end of the year and I'd have moved on. Lance is in Clarksville. He's up next here on the program. Thank you for calling and thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Lance.
Yeah, Jared, I got this one question that everybody beginning the league, including you picked the Titans to win at least 10 games. And all the media had them picking winning maybe 4 or 5. They actually did better than what the national media said.
Get to
they
it.
won 6 games. What I'm getting to is the fact that they fired Vrabel. They shouldn't have fired Vrabel. He did better than what the league expected, and all these coaches sit there and see it. You do better with the crap you're given to play with, and everybody wants him fired. Why would you want to go to Nashville?
So I don't disagree with what I mean, hey, hush. I appreciate your call. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think that there is a lot of assuming that what went down with Mike Vrabel was not fair. And yet I look at, the Craig Aukerman thing, right? Like, that's on Vrabel. Okay? The people around the league, the media, they don't follow that the way we do. But to have a punt blocked in the first game that leads to points and you lose by 3, that's a problem. That Ravens game with a 70-yard return and the muff by Kyle Phillips and the 2 punt blocks by the Colts and that, it was totally avoidable. Vrabel should have fired the guy. Vrabel defended him like there was no tomorrow, and it blew up in his face. Same with the O-line coach. The best interview I've done in 8 years. O-line was terrible. I mean, that, again, that's the difference, though. We know those things about Vrabel. They don't know those things about Vrabel. Tell me about Brandon Staley's coaching staff. You have no idea. Neither do I. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. By the way, there's some interesting tea that may be brewing. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025 again. Stillman and Company, we are presented by Jared Companies. That's right. Very, very popular around here. We are presented by Jared Companies, Fire and Commercial Plumbing HVAC Division, 615-515-1270, jaredcompanies.com. So Pierre LeBron was on TSN, Insider Trading, and they were just talking about the latest rumors and gossip. And a very popular goalie around here came up. Here's what Pierre LeBron had to say.
You know, there is a possibility, which is amazing those words are coming out of my mouth, because Nashville has been so steady in saying their only plan is to extend UC Saros this summer, and that remains the number one plan. But what has changed since the start of the year is a number of teams that are desperate to upgrade their goaltending, and because of that, I'm told that the Predators feel they have no choice but to listen if a team puts in a serious offer. And what I mean by that is don't throw a couple of first-round picks, which would be in the low 20s at the Nashville Predators. That's not going to get Barry Trotz to blink. Let's take LA as an example. If they threw in a name like Quinton Byfield as part of a package, that would get the attention of the Nashville Predators, any organization, if they want to get in on Saros. It's a huge name. They still plan to sign him, but it's something to monitor before March 8th.
Okay. Now, look, we talk to Barry every week. I don't get any sense that Barry's interested in trading a goalie, but they did change the pads, as Barry told us this week, on Yaroslav Askarov. He went from, from the black pads to the white pads, and now they feel like that's elevated his game some just because white looks bigger. So, hey, make of it what you will. Hal Gill joins us on the program, presented by Duncan. He's in L.A. with the team. Hal, how much of that is gossip from Pierre? And how much of that is maybe a possibility? What do you think?
Well, you know what, Pierre, I usually listen to. He's usually got a good pulse. He's not just throwing darts at the board to see what sticks. He's probably got something behind that. But I think, let's be honest, everyone's always available, right? I mean, if
everybody's got a price on everything for the most part.
Exactly, and I think Juice. A lot of teams would love to have him, and you talked about LA. What is LA going to give up that the Preds want that in exchange? And so I think it just comes down to what teams have available and what the price would be. But I know they're not going to be completely disappointed if they sign UC Saros to a contract and extend him and lock him in.
So I have been wondering this, though. Like, when it comes to the goaltending situation around the league, and you see these goalies night in and night out, I mean, I know that there's probably everybody would want a UC Saros back there, but so would the Predators. But when Kevin Lankinen gets in there, Hal, I think he plays pretty well, too. And so my thought behind that is, okay, if you can't get Saros, why wouldn't you call about Lankinen? But he is a backup goalie. Like, do you think that a team that is desperate for goaltending could call the Predators not about Saros, but actually about Lankinen?
Yeah, I think it's a different ballgame when you're spotting in for a couple games here or there. When you carry the lion's share, it changes the way everything about your game. And so it's not always easy to be a backup and just go into a starting position. But I think it's tough. You look at what Vegas did last year, winning the Cup, and they kind of went through their beats with the goaltending, and it wasn't always a steady number one. And so I don't think it's the end of the world, but there's a lot of teams out there that will say that bad goaltending is putting them down. And you look at what Edmonton has done, and they're trying to turn it around despite having bad goaltending. So I think there's a lot of teams like that if you get bad goaltending, you can't win. And that's where UC Saros looks pretty tempting to try and scoop him up.
Hal, I feel like tonight at LA and specifically Saturday against Arizona are massive games, especially the Saturday game against Arizona, because it feels like there's really one spot in the playoffs in the Western Conference. And right now the Predators are the leader in the clubhouse, but Calgary, Seattle, and Arizona are all kind of knocking at the door, and Arizona has games in hand. Is it too early for us to be looking at that, knowing that we really just started the year and there's a lot of hockey between now and the trade deadline and the end of the season? Or is this the time of year where we really need to, bunker down for every game down the stretch?
Yeah, it's tough. We're halfway through the season, and I keep looking around saying, and I do it too, this is a huge game. This is a huge win. And, the Preds are nipping on LA's heels, and can they catch up with them and pass them, and can they climb the ladder? But also, hey, you got a team like Arizona that's put together a pretty good season, and these two games are going to be tough. And it's a hard way to live, though, I think, for these guys. It's you want parity in the league, but it's a struggle when every game is a do or death situation, and that's what it feels like right now. But it also makes it pretty exciting too, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. I mean, what's tough though is
you're talking about playoff race halfway through the season, and it's like, okay, this is interesting.
So for me, I guess I'm trying to figure out exactly how I feel, because when they lose a game, I felt like Monday night's game, Hal, was a very frustrating loss, right? I think the team played great in the first period, and they're down 1-0. I think the team gets back into the game, and then there's a turnover. It's 4-on-4. Yossi is 8 days late getting back, and all of a sudden Mark Stone puts one in and the game's over. And you go on the road to the defending Cup champions. The Predators played their tushes off, and they lost, and I get upset about it. But at the same time, it's like, well, that's one game. And so this early, one bad week could really do some damage to this team, but it's not like they're going to win today and, on they go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard to be consistent. I think, especially with a younger team, there's going to be turnovers. There's going to be misplays and miscues. And let's also put it in Bruno's system. He wants to be aggressive, and so they do take chances, and they don't want to be foolish about it, but they're willing to bet on a 50-50 puck that if they can win it, they're going to create a scoring chance. And so, I think that's just part of the game nowadays. You got to go out and make plays to win. By doing that, you're going to have some off nights, and I think the Vegas game, I don't think they played great, but it certainly wasn't a bad game. They just gave up some odd man rushes against what was a really good line with Stevenson and Stone really connecting. And so, it's a tough game, but I think the work that they've done, that bouncing back from those tough games, has been impressive. So I'm looking for the same thing tonight.
Hal, I have a very unpopular opinion. Hal Gill is with us, presented by Duncan. I have a very unpopular opinion, and I want the truth out of you. I do not want, if you think it's a dumb opinion, I know, if it's a dumb opinion, say it. If I'm onto something, say it. Roman Yossi. He's driving me crazy. I look at the team right now. Forsberg, I think, is playing at some of the best hockey he's ever played. Ryan O'Reilly, I love everything about that guy's game. I love him. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. I think that, Saros is starting to come around. He's had some stinkers in there, but for the most part, Saturday night, he was pretty darn good against the Islanders. And then there's Yossi. And there are far too many times this year where I'm watching the game and I see the puck go in the back of the net, and I see Yossi, and I'm the kind of guy that I see the play, I see the puck go in the net, and I'm like, all right, show me the replay. And I see Roman Yossi, he's either a day late and $1 short, or he's, not getting himself in front of the puck, or his man is just, screening the goalie, or whatever it may be. And I'm like, those aren't the standards that we have for Roman Yossi around here. Roman Yossi is supposed to be flawless. He's almost perfect when it comes to how well he plays. And then I say that he's not having a season that I feel like is a Roman Yossi season both ways. And then everybody gets mad at me and says that's not true. And some guruanalytic.com says he's the greatest player ever lived. I talked to Barry about it the other day. Barry said that he's adjusting a little bit to what Andrew Burnett's asking out of him, but that he's got no qualms at all about Roman Yossi's play. So tell me, is my opinion a dumb opinion, or can they get a little bit more out of Roman Yossi?
I don't. Okay, well, I disagree with you. I think he's played well, and I've talked to Willie Donick, and I have gone back and forth. Let's just get the eye test with the numbers, and the numbers are not bad. He's played well. So in that regard, what I'm seeing is he's trying to distribute the puck, and I think you just talked about Forsberg having a great year. Well, I think Forsberg can do more things off the rush when he has the puck on the rush. And if Roman Yossi has the puck on the rush, well, Philip Forsberg is sitting there looking at him and instead of going and driving the net. And so
is that, by the way, Hal, I'm sorry to cut you off, is that the big adjustment that everybody talks about, is that Hines wanted Roman Josi carrying the puck through the neutral zone into the offensive zone, and Andrew Burnett doesn't want him doing that?
I think Hines wanted to do the same thing. I think Hines wanted Yost to move the puck and get the forwards involved more, and at times they did that. I just think it's really hard for Roman Josi to just say, he knows he can carry the puck up the length of the ice, but are you going to be able to generate scoring chances out of that? And if you're moving the puck and he's joining the rush from behind and he's adding to it, making it a 4-on-2 as opposed to a 1-on-3, I think he can add to the rush and be productive that way. It just takes a while to adapt to it. And I think he's done that, and it's not always easy. I think Bruno has been hard on him where he's like, okay, there's times when I need you to carry the puck up, but there's also times when I need you to move the puck and let our forwards do the work. So I think Yost has another gear to get to. I think he's got some more in him, but I certainly don't think he's had a bad season at all. I think he's played fantastic. It's just, the standard, his standard is not, he's not reaching that, but I think by the team looking the way they do, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of Josi for a better team.
Mm-hmm. Last one for you. Hal Gills with us, presented by Duncan. What do we think about the Kings tonight?
That's going to be interesting. They're not so hot as they were, but like a good young team, a good mix of everything. They got some depth. I always like watching these games because I feel like there's a lot of momentum swings with the Kings, and if they come out hot, you got to be ready for it. And so I think it's going to be a challenge, especially playing in their building where, if they get going and they turn it on, the Preds better be ready for it and try to turn it back around. So I think that's going to be a battle for them tonight.
There you go. Hal Gill, presented by Duncan. Hal, enjoy the sunny, warm western part of the United States.
Yeah, and stay warm back there, buddy.
We will try. Hal Gill will be on the call tonight, a late one tonight, 9 o'clock against the Kings. Stillman and Company, Predators Game Day is coming up next. 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Predators Game Day is presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty, online at tjandersonhomes.com. Get your house seen, heard, and sold with TJ Anderson. Predators tonight, it's a late one. On the road at LA. LA is 21-12-8, good for 50 points. The Predators 24-19-1, good for 49 points. The Predators are hanging on to the last wild card spot in the Western Conference, and it looks like that's going to be the only spot for them to really contend for the last half of the season, as it looks like Dallas too far ahead, as they're 8 points ahead and they have a game in hand. And meanwhile, Edmonton has 4 games in hand. They both have 49 points. Calgary and Seattle have 47 with no games in hand on the Predators. So this is a big one. Everyone's going to be a big one down the stretch. Boy, a heater would be really nice for the Predators. Meanwhile, here is Coach Andrew Burnett on the road trip and the games.
Well, they're going to be playoff-type games, and I really liked their last 3 games. I liked their energy. I liked the pace we're playing at. I liked their desperation or relentlessness, and we're going to have to need that again against a desperate team in LA.
Going to need it tonight. Again, all of these games, we were talking about it with Hal. One game is not going to sink the battleship. One bad week and a half could. But again, this is going to be kind of a playoff chase down the stretch, kind of like, and I hope it's this way, kind of like 2021, where it was a real chase down the stretch. But we also learned last year that, getting hot at the end may give you a chance, whatever it may be. Meanwhile, Philip Forsberg has been hot for the Predators, and right now he leads Nashville in points. He leads Nashville in points with 48 and is 13th in the NHL in goals with 22. This is the first of 3 matchups between the Predators and the Kings, and the first of 2 at Crypto.com Arena. So Max will have you at 8 o'clock with the pregame, the puck drop. Again, it's a late one, 9 o'clock, Stillman and Company. ESPN Radio's next. We'll see you all tomorrow at 2.